Tomorrow, all the way to 70 by Monday. Right now, it's cloudy and 37 degrees downtown.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
9 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Amanda Dixon. KSL's top story. Investigators in Box Elder County are now working to identify human remains found in Brigham City yesterday. Brigham City Police Chief Chad Reyes says the remains were in a trash bag that was discovered by railroad workers off West Highway 13.
They're definitely human remains. It appears that they've been here for some time, but I would say, sometime less than at least a couple years.
Reyes says at this point they do not believe these remains are those of Matthew Johnson, a Cottonwood Heights National Guardsman whose body has been missing since last fall. Anyone with information about this case is asked to reach out to Brigham City Police. A man is facing charges after police say he reportedly tried to steal a hoodie, sprayed a mall security guard with chemical mace, and ran from police. Officers say it was at the Provo Mall. One of the stores had to be closed early due to the fumes of the mace. Everett Stephen Eichbauer reportedly confessed to police after his arrest. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The stock market plummeted this morning as it reacts to President Trump's tariff announcement, imposing a 10% tariff on nearly all foreign imports. ABC's chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis.
The market is responding to the size of these reciprocal tariffs because when you look at a country like China that we do a lot of business with, that 34% tariff plus the 20% tariff that we're also looking at, that is a big increase in costs for American businesses who import goods from China, and it's likely to translate to consumers paying more as well.
Let's see where we are right now. The NASDAQ is down 5%, 986 points. The S&P is down 4.75%. That's 248. The Dow right now is down 1,577 points. That is 3.75%. We're at 40,915. Coming up, we've got clouds today and a warming trend begins. The weekend looks nice. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 9:02. A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
This is Jeff Stout with Fink and McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple. News of recent layoffs reminded me of a quote from Bob Hope. A bank is a place that will lend you money if you can prove you don't need it. A periodic check of finances can prevent big problems later on. How much debt do you have? What are the payments? Do you have a rainy day fund? What would happen if you lost your job or had other unforeseen financial issues? Mortgage interest rates have been coming down, and there may be a window of opportunity to look at your situation in terms of a possible refinance and restructuring of debt. If you'd like to go over your situation, give us a call or take advantage of our quick application at 4minutemortgage.com. It might help. There's one way to find out. Give us a call. Fink and McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple, 801-264-9494. That's 264-9494. Or on the web at finkmcgregor.com, NMLS 289115.
This Friday from 10 to 1, the movie show comes to Sound Sleep. But first, take time to learn about a better night's rest. Sound Sleep delivers oral appliance therapy that treats sleep apnea without the use of CPAP machines. They're professionally fit, warranted, and covered by most major medical insurance. End the days of a poor night's sleep. With offices from Clearfield to St. George, Sound Sleep will help. Call Sound Sleep at 801-716-8672 today.
Are you looking to find more fairways, hit more greens, and lower your scores? Then a custom golf club fitting from a Shields certified master fitter is your answer. Learning from the world's top fitters at Titleist Performance Institute, Callaway Performance Center, and the Ping Proving Grounds, we're equipped to fit you with the right clubs to make your game more consistent. Go to shields.com/expert fitting to schedule a custom fitting today.
I've done multiple different eating plans before. They helped me get weight off, but boom, 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 it all just came back with a vengeance.
Stop wasting time and money on plans that don't work. Trust the #1 weight loss company in America, Soda Weight Loss.
My name's Jim. In 5 months, I dropped over 65 pounds.
Hi, I'm Jared. I'm at 21 weeks, I've lost 110 pounds.
I tried to do it on my own, and I think it's discouraging when you try over and over again and you just get nowhere. You have the experts here. If you're on the fence, I mean, if it hasn't worked out on your own, these are the people to do it.
When you start losing the weight, even that first 5 pounds, this enormous amount of confidence starts to build into you. You start to realize, like, oh, this is possible for me.
No shots, no medications, just real results that last for a lifetime.
How about this? When you join Soda Weight Loss with a partner, you only pay for one. Get started now. Go to sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com.
Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
We have emergency traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's MyStyle checking account with built-in benefits. And here's Heather Kelly.
Well, this is due to a closure of eastbound I-84 in Morgan County. All traffic is being forced to exit at Reese Lane. That's backing traffic up about a mile or so. You might be better off exiting into Morgan City to avoid the delays before you can even exit the freeway or be forced off to exit the freeway. And then rain and snow moving across the Salt Lake Valley, slowing things down on I-15, both northbound and southbound between downtown Salt Lake and Murray. Make your someday today. Start your dream kitchen or bath at Bedrock Quartz with 18 months, 0% financing. Visit one of 7 Utah showrooms near you today or bedrockquartz.com. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Mostly cloudy skies today with a high of 50 degrees. Temperatures warm up to the mid-50s, 61 on Sunday. We're back in the 70s early next week. Right now, it's cloudy and 38 degrees. I'm Amanda Dixon from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio. Dave and Dujanovic, special coverage of the top national story.
It's probably a good thing that Debbie Dujanovic is off today, so she doesn't have to watch what is happening with the stock market right now. It took about 40 minutes from when the markets opened to plunge almost 1,600 points this morning. It's leveled off a little bit, but what a start to the day, Greg Skordas.
It really has been. And since we got here just a couple of hours ago, we've seen it drop repeatedly. Like you said, it's almost to 1,600 at 3.72% drop. That's just the Dow. I mean, others are dropping fairly equal numbers. But, yeah, everything's plunging. And now we're reading that the dollar has weakened as it relates to other countries, too. So the U.S. dollar, the stock market, everything's in a free fall today.
All of this reacting to President Trump's Liberation Day yesterday. Well, today it seems to be Retaliation Day. Here's the latest from ABC News.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
With the whole world watching, President Trump in the Rose Garden announcing a sweeping set of tariffs on all goods imported to the United States. A move that threatens to upend the global economy and spike the cost of living for American families. The president insists it's necessary to bring jobs and manufacturing back to America.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence.
The president declaring a national emergency, imposing a 10% tariff on all foreign imports.
That was ABC's Rachel Scott. And when we were watching this unfold yesterday in the Rose Garden, Greg, I couldn't help but notice it was run almost like a rally. It was cheers, it was high fives, it was, the who's who of Washington showing up to support President Trump's busting out, these charts that tell the story. I mean, it was quite the event yesterday.
Yeah, and we've seen tariffs more in the last, 100 days since Trump took office, 90 days, than we have in the prior maybe 10, 20 years. I mean, they just continue on and on and on. We started with China, then we went to Canada, then we went to Mexico. Now we've really gone global, and some of the countries that we're imposing tariffs on, some of these tariffs are just huge numbers, very, very big numbers. And you have to wonder he's not doing this in a vacuum. He's not doing this just to punish countries. He must have some end game. There must be something down the road where he thinks, or his economists, his advisors have told him, do this we're going to have some hard times, but we're going to bounce back. So far, yeah, we're seeing the hard times. Really, really hard.
Joining us right now is Bankrate's financial analyst, Stephen Cates. And Stephen, that seems to be kind of a two-part to this tariff. There's like a base tariff, and then there's a reciprocal tariff. Can you walk us through that a little bit, and then what we're seeing in the stock market?
Yes, and thanks for having me on. So the base tariff of 10% is really affecting all countries. And then additionally, we have tariffs on top of those. So individual percentage tariffs across different countries, depending on their relative barriers to our own imports.
So friend or foe, you're 10%. It doesn't matter who you are. Friend or foe, 10%. But then each country kind of gets an additional tariff depending on how President Trump sees their relationship and their trade relationship with the U.S.?
Yeah, so it isn't even necessarily how he views it, although his view is certainly, impacting this quite considerably. They have a formula behind how they got to these. It seems to be that, it's the trade imbalance that we have with each respective country, essentially divided by two.
Stephen, we were surprised a little bit that Canada and Mexico were not included in this chart yesterday. That doesn't mean necessarily that they're off the hook, does it?
Well, I mean, we already have tariffs on China and Mexico and Canada, excuse me. And so this is, in case of China, this is on top of those 20% tariffs on China. For Canada and Mexico, we went through that sort of rigmarole a few weeks back, and we still have, at least today, any of the USMCA exemptions still in place. And so that's beneficial for some of the trade agreement that we had from the first Trump administration. But goods like potash and other energy that does not comply with that is going to have the tariffs that were applied a few weeks back.
So when you talk about, say, for example, China, the new tariff is 34%. Is that in addition to the previously imposed 20%? So we're looking at a 54% tariff on China alone?
That is correct.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's hefty.
Yeah. So again, back to Canada, do you suppose that there will be an additional tariff added to them within the near future? Or where do you think we are with Canada? So
I'll say this. I cannot predict with a lot of certainty what is going to happen. I don't think anybody can do that given the amount of unpredictability that we're dealing with. But I don't think so. I think that, we went through that with Mexico and Canada already. I think that the administration is going to be focused on the rest of the world. So ideally, Canada and Mexico should be, if I can use the word safe, from additional tariffs other than what we're dealing with today. It's really going to be the rest of the world that is going to be the focus for the Trump administration now. Final question.
As we're watching the stock market drop nearly 4%, it's down almost 1,600 points or 1,500 points right now. The consumer impact to this, can you walk us through what's next?
Well, so in regards to the stock market, one thing to remember is the stock market is not the economy. While this reflects a lot of important market participants and businesses' reaction to this, a very poor reaction, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to translate one-to-one to the labor market or hiring or things like that. Now, this may be foreshadowing for additional reductions in growth over the next couple quarters, and that is going to impact the economy, hiring, layoffs, et cetera. To what effect, we don't yet know. But what this does immediately is lower the amount of wealth that people feel they have today. And this is certainly a shock to see this percentage drop in a single day. We haven't seen these really since 2022 and before that during COVID. So this is a stark reminder that we're dealing with a lot of unpredictability.
Stephen Cates, thank you so much for joining us from Bankrate, their financial analyst there. So thanks, Stephen. I appreciate that. And Greg, as we have watched that, we saw this initial in the first hours, just this huge drop, 1,500 points. It has leveled out a little bit. And to what Mr. Cates was talking about, the market is not necessarily the economy. What actually happens over the next several months once these tariffs are imposed and we start collecting this money, what that means long term, I don't know. That's still to be determined.
But I think the market is a good indicator, Dave, of where public confidence is, where investors are thinking the buck hits the road. And I look at this and I look at this huge drop, and I wish we had Cates on a little bit longer, but he only had a few minutes with us, because what I wanted to find out was if Trump's doing this and he's got advisors telling him to do this, they must have assumed there would be a dip. Maybe not the dip that we have, but what's their long-term plan? We want to get more business in America. We want more American jobs. We want more American products being sold. It almost seems like the opposite is going to happen, and we're going to have prices go up. I mean, dare I say recession? Because we're talking about almost creating a worldwide recession. If you look at the economists, if you look at what we're seeing on the screens and the media today, people are starting to use the R word more than they have for a long time.
So it's been interesting as we've been listening to the Trump administration and specifically the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. It stood out to me. It was kind of shocking. He said, the American dream is not a cheap flat screen television. It's a good, steady, well-paying job, not lost to foreign competition. And It's very easy to look at gas prices or egg prices or the cheap flat screen television that's 100 inches wide, right? But honestly, do we care as much about that flat screen television costing $200 more, or a well-paying job that maybe pays $20,000 more than you are making right now? And I think the hope from the tariffs, and who knows if this will actually play out, is to bring back some manufacturing jobs, some good, well-paying jobs that will far out exceed what these little 20% tariffs will hit on our products.
Yeah, and just for an example, Vietnam, new tariff 46%. And what that's doing, I'm sort of watching the reaction to that. You know what Vietnam imports to the United States more than anything else? Shoes.
Really?
Yeah. And so people are saying we need to find another source for shoes. Maybe American manufacturers are going to have to step up to the plate and do that. But it's got to be a huge blow to that nation's economy. But it's also, I'm just going to take a look at what happens to shoes in the next 90 days, because that's just an example. I mean, we know that, motor vehicles often they're made and marketed in Canada, other things from different countries. Of course, there's so much of what we get from China. We'll see how much prices start increasing on all those goods, or whether or not America picks up the ball and says, no, we'll just make shoes here cheaper, because we don't often do that. It's not part of our mindset. It's not part of our manufacturing plan to build things cheaper than other countries, because let's face it, we pay a fair wage. We give benefits. We give other things to our employees that some countries don't, unfortunately, for those employees, but we take advantage of that as Americans because we buy goods cheaper.
Is that right?
No, that's the point. That's you're right. You nailed it. I mean, that's the whole problem, because we think, boy, you look at how labor is in some of these countries and how their workers are treated, and it's horrible. We wouldn't do that in America in a million years. So what are we doing? We are saying, okay, we're going to punish some of those countries, but not for that reason, but because there's a huge trade deficit. And let's face it, some of these countries are never, ever, ever going to buy as much from us as we buy from them, because they don't have the money. They just don't have the income. There's no way Vietnam is going to import from America as much as they export. It's never going to happen. And China, for that matter, unless something changes drastically. We're a country that we've reached a level of independence, financial independence, and wealth that we can afford to buy more than we sell. And that's just what America is like. And I don't know that these tariffs are ever going to change that. Maybe move the needle a little bit, but not change it too much. There's always going to be a deficit.
There's a couple of things when I was looking around doing some research. I found this website, and it was it brought together all these American companies, and they called it From Seed to Stitch. Essentially, this is the seed we plant that grows the cotton that we harvest, and then we produce the shirt from seed to stitch. And I look at this dress shirt, and it's a beautiful dress shirt for $275. Right. That's what Buy American Seed to Stitch look like in the clothing industry. At least this one company, it's high end, but it's still a $300 dress shirt. How many Americans are going to look at that $300 dress shirt and say, you know what? Let's buy American because we want to support American businesses, when you can buy the same shirt for $30 from China or from Vietnam.
Have you ever had a $300 dress shirt?
No,
I haven't.
No,
I've never had a $100 dress shirt. I mean, it just I don't, because you go to a place, you find a nice $49.95 dress shirt. I think that's great. I'm going to wear it for a couple of years and
buy one, get next one half off.
Get one. Yeah, get one. I mean, I don't know. We'll see where this goes, but I'm just watching. J.P. Morgan is saying the new tariffs are likely to plunge a global economy into recession. I mean, these are people that know what's going on. The president must also. He must know something or think something that we don't know about, and maybe there's going to be some backlash that is in his favor. Maybe other countries will have to step up to the plate. I don't know where this is going to go.
One of the most compelling parts of that press conference in the Rose Garden was when President Trump, and it's kind of funny, he loves printed out papers. He is not a digital kind of guy. He wants printed out papers, and he pulls out a chart. And this chart has to be 3.5 feet tall. And he's holding it up and he's pointing to it. And what stood out to me is not only does it say, hey, we're hitting China with a 34% tariff and Vietnam at 46% and Cambodia's nearly a 50% tariff. Just to the side of that, it says tariffs charged to the USA. And the reason they came up with these numbers, so the 34% tariff on China, is they said, well, we're going to charge you half of what you charge us. So China's tariffs on the United States is 67%. Thailand is 72%. Cambodia is 97%. So when we look at those numbers, I had no idea.
I didn't either. I don't know that I believe them, but I mean, I don't think that he would just publish something like that. I had no idea that other countries were imposing tariffs on American goods like that. And if so, it's no wonder that we have such a deficit.
And a little bit to your point, though, we are consumers. We are a consumerist nation, and we love to buy from the entire world. And the globalist economy, the way it has become, where it has been so much free trade, and we have allowed people to just send their products into the United States, which allows us. And I kid you not, I never thought I'd see the day. I've been in the TV business for 25 years on some level. And to see a 100-inch television for $1,000, this used to be, and I kid you not, 5 years ago, a $20,000 TV.
Really?
And now we're getting it for $1,000. The technology has changed. To say that we love our cheap televisions, it's because we've got television producers all over the world where they're competing against each other to see who can give us the biggest television for the cheapest price. And these tariffs will absolutely affect these products that are coming in because it is a blanket tariff of at least 10%, and in many cases, upwards of 20, 30, and 50%.
Yeah, and it's not just countries that you would think we don't have great relationships with. I'm looking at the European Union adding 20%, Japan 24%, Switzerland 32%. Countries that you would think, even South Korea 26%, that we are friendly with, that we have good relations with, that we support, that have U.S. military bases, that we're there, we're on the same team. You would think, but some of these tariffs, I don't know. The T word is really getting to me now after Trump's several months in office. It's a concept that he has, that he's talked about from day one. He said, and when you talk about Trump, promises made, promises kept. He talked about tariffs before he was elected, and he said we're going to do that. And boy, has he jumped in with both feet.
Absolutely. Coming up next, the state of Idaho just passed a bill that is as controversial and shocking as anything I've seen in a very long time. It would expand the death penalty to pedophiles. You're with us today, Greg, our KSL legal analyst. This is a perfect conversation. I've got to pick your brain on this. But the death penalty to pedophiles just passed the state of Idaho. We get into this next.
Dave and Dujanovic.
If you're driving to work or you're driving the kids to a soccer game, we're your in-car companions.
People will come up to me and say, "Oh, I talk to you every day. You don't realize it because I'm talking at the radio, but I talk to you every day."
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
One of the best things about my Connecticut water softener is it just extended the life of my water heater. And the reason I know this is because for a few years I had installed a water heater. And after 3 years, it had corroded, it had broken, and I had to swap it out. So when I swapped it out, that's when I got my Connecticut water softener. And 8 years later, it was still humming along. I had to move before the water softener had to be replaced. So I was so happy I tied that success directly to my Connecticut water softener, because the benefits of soft water are enormous. Not only is it great for your expensive appliances, we've found it to be great on our skin. So we really struggle with dry skin in our family. Obviously, here in Utah, I'm sure you do as well. But we have seen a huge difference with soft water in our home. It keeps our skin soft, hydrated. So if you're interested, go ahead and reach out to Connecticut. They deliver that 24/7 soft water. You never run out. It's because it is designed so wonderfully. Go ahead and call Northern Utah's authorized Connecticut dealer, Connecticut Quality Water Systems of Salt Lake, now at 801-576-8600. That's 801-576-8600. Log on to softwaterutah.com and let them know that Dave sent you.
Troy, I don't know if you know this, but we're a big deal.
Are we?
Oh, yeah.
Can you be a big deal and still live with your mom?
Who do you think told me? But honestly, who else but Fishes brings back show pricing on all RVs this far into spring just so everyone gets the best price possible?
That actually is a really big deal. No one does that.
See? We are a big deal.
The sale is a big deal.
The big deal is talking.
Get into Bish's RV for second chance show pricing for a limited time.
We're talking travel trailers starting under $129 per month on approved credit.
Clearance pricing on all remaining new in stock 2024s.
And enjoy 0 payments until July. OAC.
And here's the really big deal. Every RV purchase gets free propane refills for life as long as you own the RV.
Start shoving the best deals now at Bishes.com.
Don't miss your very last chance at the best show pricing deals around. Only for a limited time at Bish's RV of Salt Lake and American Fork, where memories begin.
Based on approved credit, 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Stock numbers 89912, 81734. Subject to prior sale. See other details.
Hey, are you nervous about this stock market volatility and what will happen with tariffs, taxes, and Social Security? You're invited to a free educational event with Jeff Bush. Jeff's been featured in Investment News and CNBC. He's a nonpartisan authority that talks about this is what's going on in Washington right now. Here's how it could impact you. And these are the actionable strategies that could protect and grow your retirement savings. This event is hosted by Boss Retirement Solutions. See Jeff Bush live on Thursday, April 10th at 6:30 p.m. in downtown Salt Lake. Reserve your free ticket now by calling 801-850-6988. That's 801-850-6988. 801-850-6988.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Boss Retirement Solutions and Advisors paid Jeff Bush for his appearance, but he is not affiliated with our firm.
Get one free set of brake pads when you buy 2 brake rotors. Visit O'Reilly Auto Parts. Offer in-store only. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
This message comes from Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort. Journey through the heart of Europe on an elegant Viking longship with thoughtful service, destination-focused dining, and cultural enrichment on board and on shore. With small ships that bring travelers closer to the destination, there's more time to explore. And every Viking voyage is all-inclusive, with no children and no casinos. Discover more at Viking.com. Go from daydreamer to industry leader with Amazon Business. From office supplies to IT essentials, Amazon Business provides tools that help you save costs and make insight-based decisions. Learn how to bring your visions to life at AmazonBusiness.com.
Jeff Kaplan.
When I was a kid, my parents got me a subscription to Newsweek magazine. I would devour every page into the night. And to this day, I sit on my iPad looking for stories for my Minute of News, flesh out our coverage, and I get to share the news with you.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Amanda Dixon. Our top story this hour, Utah Governor Spencer Cox is ordering U.S. and Utah state flags to be lowered to half staff at all state facilities on Monday in honor of former Congresswoman Mia Love. The order calls for flags to be lowered at sunrise and then returned to full staff at sunset. Representative Love will lie in state at the Utah Capitol building Sunday night, with memorial services on Monday at 10 a.m. at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Institute of Religion on the University of Utah campus. Salt Lake City says construction season has officially begun. This year is the final year of voter-approved street projects, with several beginning this month. Voters approved nearly $90 million to improve 65 major and local streets. That was back in 2018. The final phase of 2100 South and Sugar House is one of the projects to start this month. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. At least 4 people have died after a string of tornadoes, rain, and severe storms hit portions of the South and Midwest. ABC News Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z reports from Arkansas.
We heard from a local firefighter who said that he does not think that anybody was in this house, which is great news, but this was one of hundreds of tornado warnings from Wisconsin back to Louisiana and Texas up to Ohio, with that concentration right here along the Mississippi River. This is just day 1 of 4.
She was reporting next to a house that was destroyed by a tornado. Z says there is a tornado ripping through Missouri and another one in Oklahoma. Your money at this moment, the Dow is now down 3 4/10%. That is $1,433. We're at 40,791. Coming up, we do have clouds today and a chance of rain, and we saw some snow flurries earlier this morning. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 9:32.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Jeff Kaplan.
I'm energized by breaking news. First of all, because it's right now, and second of all, because in many cases the audience needs to know. There's no more important service that we can provide, and I find it critically important to get more details to the audience as quickly as possible. There's nothing more energizing than that for me. Not at all. The most important thing we do is breaking news. I am gratified that so many people listen to me every afternoon on KSL, but what they don't know is that there are so many people behind the scenes making it happen, checking on the traffic, answering the phones, making the calls, talking to the newsmakers. They're out in the street, into the field to get the raw information, and then putting it all together so that I can sit in front of a microphone and be a source of information every afternoon. But there are so many people who make it happen. That's what you don't know.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Emergency traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account with built-in benefits. Heather Kelly?
Well, this is due to the closure of eastbound I-84 in Morgan County. The road is shut down before you even get to the Taggart Lane exit to take you to Taggart's Grill. Everyone is being forced to exit at Reese Lane, but that has traffic backed up almost to Morgan City. So you're going to be better off exiting into Morgan City, finding an alternate route heading east, trying to get over to Echo Junction. The rest of the roadways are in pretty good shape, although we still have these stray rain and snow showers moving across Utah and Salt Lake valleys that wet down the roadways from time to time, and snow is actively falling right now in Little Cottonwood Canyon, making things slick. If you see anything on the roadways, you can text us at the Mountain Home Services text line at 57500. Replenish Landscape offers the finest compost and hardscape products, including bark, mulch, top dressing, and even playground materials. When you want the best, visit replenishcompost.com. Replenish, it's good stuff. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Mostly cloudy skies today with a high around 50. We'll be in the mid-50s until Sunday. We get back up into the 60s, 70 on Monday. Right now, let's see what our current temperature is. We're at 37 degrees. I'm Amanda Dixon from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
Greg Skordas is joining me right now. And Greg, you saw this headline, and I saw it in the Deseret News as well as we're looking at it. It says, Idaho expands the death penalty to child predators. That was as shocking a headline as I've seen. I've never heard of this. I never expected it. But there are some feelings in Idaho amongst lawmakers that they've been too lenient on sexual predators of children, and that they want to send a terrifying message that you can actually be put to death, receive the death penalty, if you are a child predator.
Yeah, and it's a shift, Dave, because in our country, and of course there was a time really during my lifetime when we didn't have the death penalty, when it was cruel and unusual punishment. It came back, I don't know, like 40, 50 years ago. You remember Utah had Gary Gilmore on death row. He was one of the first people to be executed after the reinstatement of the death penalty. And different states have taken different positions on it. But the Supreme Court of the United States has always been firm, at least until now, that the death penalty is to be applied when a homicide occurs and not for a crime that does not involve the death of another person. So some states, including Utah, we talked about this a couple of years ago. A legislator said we should expand the death penalty to repeat child molesters. In other words, a person who had been convicted of a sex crime involving a child, they get out, they're on parole, they commit another crime. Maybe there's a two-strike rule, and let's put that person to death. We didn't quite go that far, in part because the Supreme Court of the United States has never given us that leeway, never said we're going to allow the death penalty when the underlying crime did not involve a death.
So even to that point, when the underlying crime does involve a death, when there is a murder, there are still the vast majority of murders that happen in this country, in this state, that never get even prosecuted, or they never even seek the death penalty because it has to be so premeditated, egregious, awful, terrifying. We only prosecute for the death penalty and convict people of the death penalty on very rare occasions.
You're right. We do. And in fact, what we have is, and most states follow this law, and Utah and Idaho are actually quite similar. You have the crime of murder, which is a knowing and intentional causing the death of another person. That crime is punishable by 25 years to life. Then you have a crime called aggravated murder, which is the knowing and intentional causing of another person in connection with another, what we call aggravating circumstance. And Utah has expanded the definition of aggravating circumstance. I think we used to have, 10 or 12. Now they're lettered, A through, and I think they're to Z almost. There are so many aggravating circumstances that there's probably 20 now that can make a murder into a death penalty case. But you're right. We still are very circumspect. It's not something we file routinely. And I was a prosecutor, and I was a death penalty prosecutor. And I remember thinking of cases and thinking, does this qualify for the death penalty? Yes. But is it something we should really pursue? Is it something a jury is really going to give us? And you have to make those decisions. And so to our credit here in Utah, and really nationwide, we don't overcharge death penalty cases generally. I know some of my friends in the criminal defense bar might say, Skordas, what are you talking about? But we're a little bit circumspect about that.
So I didn't realize this. Back in 2008, the U.S. Supreme Court actually ruled on this. They ruled out the death sentence for a child rapist in a 5-4 decision. And back in 2008, this is when the court was more liberal. There was more liberal courts. But it was still a 5-4 decision. It was narrow.
That was Kennedy versus Louisiana, where Louisiana decided that they would allow the death penalty for crimes against children, sex crimes against children. This was a forcible sexual abuse against a child, 8-year-old child. The court there in Louisiana said it qualifies. The Supreme Court of Louisiana said it qualifies. They imposed the death penalty. It went up to the United States Supreme Court. And you're right. And it's important, this 5-4 decision. The United States Supreme Court said it's not proportionate to the crime. So Idaho's pushing the envelope here, but there's a reason for that, and that is that I think they're banking on the fact that the makeup of the United States Supreme Court has changed since 2008, and that 5-4 might be 3-6 now. You know what I mean? It might go the other way, and so some other states are actually doing it as well. It looks like Tennessee and Florida have both passed death penalty laws involving child rape cases. So other states are picking up the ball and saying, maybe it's time to push this with the United States Supreme Court, and it will certainly get there. It absolutely will get there. But we don't have the test case yet. But I mean, the Supreme Court's going to have to jump in and say, do we really want to take that quantum leap and say that the death penalty applies when no death occurred?
Idaho Governor Brad Little said, the sexual abuse of a child is sickening and evil, and perpetrators convicted of these crimes deserve the ultimate punishment. And again, historically, we have not viewed as heinous and as awful as a rape of a child is. We have not equated that to murder, and murder in the most heinous way that we look at it. Your thoughts on, as it goes through the court system and as these challenges start happening, how do you qualify, or how do you figure out who would qualify, which kind of child molester or rapist? I would imagine, much in the way we have aggravated murder, you'd have to have something equivalent.
Exactly. And back in the 90s, I was the head of the Special Victims Unit at the District Attorney's Office, and I prosecuted cases against children. And so I know how horrible they can be. I know the long-term effects that it has on people, and the fact that some perpetrators were once victims. It's a cycle, and it continues. And you're right. Some cases, they're all bad. They're all horrific. There are things that I've read and seen that you just can't get out of your head. But this is going to be, I assume, Idaho's law and the other states we talked about, Tennessee and Louisiana, Tennessee and Florida, who have passed similar laws, must have a very defining statute that says the death penalty applies in child sex cases where the following occurs. And they've got to be pretty definitive about that. And I assume that they will be.
Another, I guess, adjacent topic to this is that Idaho has now made the firing squad their preferred method of execution.
Yeah, that's a little bit surprising to me, although Idaho, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Utah are the only states that still authorize the firing squad. In Utah, it's not the preferred method. Lethal injection is. And there was a time when we allowed inmates, they were convicted of a capital crime, to pick in Utah. I think maybe they even still do that. But now the firing squad doesn't apply prospectively. If people are already on death row, and it was a time when the firing squad was legal and they chose that method of execution, it'll apply. But in Utah, going forward, we won't have the firing squad. And the reason for this, and I know we're running short on time, is that the companies that are making these drugs for the lethal injection are saying, wait a minute, that's not why we created these drugs. This was not something we want to do. And their own shareholders and some of the people that are buying some of their products are saying, do we really want to be involved in a company that's creating drugs that are used to kill people?
When we come back, we're doing a special half hour on the death penalty and just the expansion of the definition and the use of it. Up next, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi directed prosecutors to seek the death penalty against Luigi Mangione. This is the man that is alleged of killing the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thomas. This is the first time the Justice Department has sought to bring the death penalty since Donald Trump has returned the office.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
I need new rotors.
When you buy 2 Duralast rotors during our spring sale, you get Duralast brake pads free.
Free?
With the rotors.
Well, that's great. What if I need extra stopping power?
You can upgrade to Duralast Gold pads for just $10.
So Duralast pads are free?
Yep.
And an upgrade is just $10?
That's right. Part of the spring sale at AutoZone.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Hey, Green Gobbler here. So you've got a clogged drain in your bathroom. Water in the sink's overstaying its welcome. You're spitting today's toothpaste on top of yesterday's toothpaste. You hope that it go away. Yeah, clogs don't just go away. I make them go away. I'm Green Gobbler, the only clog dissolver you need. I'm bleach-free, safe for your pipes, and I work. Guaranteed or your money back. Because I never met a clog that was gonna unclog itself. Green Gobbler. Let the gobbler get it.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. In October of 1985, A woman named Cherie Warren left work at a busy Salt Lake City office
to meet her estranged husband at a downtown auto dealership.
She never made it home. Cherie's car surfaced weeks later in Las Vegas.
In the parking lot of a hotel casino.
No one knows how it got there.
Strange. It was strange.
Both Cherie's estranged husband and her boyfriend raised suspicion for investigators.
I kind of thought that he might have done something.
But no arrests were ever made. In Cold Season 3, we dig into double lives, make new connections in the case, and examine the difficulty raised by reasonable doubt.
We want answers just as much as anyone else.
They have creeps like that now too, so nothing's changed.
That's the new Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, now available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Dave, and Dujanovic.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Tuesday that she was directing prosecutors to seek the death penalty against Luigi Mangione. You'll probably remember this story. Mangione is the person that was accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And you'll remember Thompson was walking to like a conference, and this man, allegedly Mangione, walks up behind him, pulls out a pistol, and executes him right on the streets, and then takes off. And there was a huge manhunt trying to track him down. They were able to do some pretty incredible investigative work, tracked him down, and are now charging him. And Greg, I want to pick your brain a little bit on this, because typically murders will be handled on the state level.
Right.
Why is the federal government, why is the Attorney General stepping in here?
In this case, it's really weird because we think about the whole idea of double jeopardy. You can be tried in one jurisdiction, but these are separate jurisdictions. And so he is being prosecuted on the state level, but he's also being prosecuted on the federal level. And you think, how can somebody be prosecuted twice for the same offense? It's easy because they're separate crimes, if you will. Idaho, the state where this occurred, New York,
yeah.
is prosecuting him for murder. The federal government is prosecuting him for murder through the use of a firearm, which sounds a lot the same, but they're prosecuting both cases, and both cases are going to go forward, Dave. And people don't understand that, but he could very well be convicted on the state case and the federal case. Now, the state of New York does not have the death penalty, or at least it's not applying in this case. I don't think it's a death penalty state anyway. So they're looking at, I think their potential there could be 25 years to life. They're going to move forward. The feds are also moving forward on this case, and you're right. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said we're going to seek the death penalty on him, which we really haven't had a lot of federal death penalty cases. And I think what you said was this is the first federal death penalty case under Trump's administration. Of course, the administration's only been going for a couple months, but it shows a shift between the Biden administration and the Trump administration as it relates to pursuing the death penalty.
The Biden administration had essentially put a moratorium on seeking the death penalty in federal cases. So to have Attorney General Bondi say Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and father of two, was a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. It's an act of political violence. What stood out to me there is where she calls it an assassination, an act of political violence. Does that change things? Does that add the possibility, or looking at it as an assassination, I guess is much different than the way the state is looking at it as a conventional murder?
It changes things for her. It changes things for the perspective of the case. It changes things in the sense that she's saying this isn't just a garden variety murder. This is something, under the law, it doesn't make a difference. She's not defining the federal statute by any means and saying this is an assassination or political, something like that. She's saying this one's really bad, and so we should pursue the death penalty. And you mentioned Biden. I want to say this. When he left office, there were 40 people on federal death row. He commuted the sentence of 37 of those. In other words, he left only 3 people on death row, and they're the man who killed the 9 black members of the church in Charleston, South Carolina, the Boston Marathon bomber, and another one who shot 11 people at the synagogue in Pittsburgh. So it took the really bad ones that Biden left on the table, but he commuted the sentence. Now, those are commuted forever. But And Biden was not a fan of the death penalty anyway, so his attorney general didn't pursue the death penalty on cases, but the new administration is going to.
And this is, in part, what is very interesting is even if they do pursue the death penalty in these cases, it takes so long to actually execute these people. It can take 20, 30, sometimes even 40 years to actually execute individuals. You may change through half dozen or administrations during that time.
Yeah, and my wife works for the 10th Circuit, and she does the death penalty assignments and works on the death penalty cases. She's an attorney. She's literally in New Mexico today educating public defenders and judges in that jurisdiction on this new thing that we're bringing back, the death penalty, because they haven't dealt with it. And they're saying, well, how does that change things? How do we do things differently? So it is a different mindset. It is a different administration, and it is something that they were expecting. They knew that Trump was going to bring back the death penalty. I've handled cases. I've handled death penalty cases, and I don't really want to get into the weeds about how I feel about it. But it's always going to be controversial. It's always going to be something that makes America seem different to other sort of more progressive nations, because a lot of other progressive nations don't use it. But it's here to stay. I think the populace really thinks the death penalty is good. And if anything, we're probably going to be seeing more and more death penalty cases as time goes by.
President Trump oversaw 13 executions in his first term. So when we're looking at who this was, a CEO of a major health company, Brian Thompson, he's 50 years old. He has 2 children. But it sounds like Luigi Mangione, the suspect, had targeted him specifically, not because he was unhappy with the healthcare system, because he felt like it was exploiting and that it was choosing winners and losers.
Exactly.
So does it change when it is more of a, hey, I'm not maybe against this person personally. I don't have a vendetta against this person. He hasn't wronged me, versus he represents something that I despise and I kill him. Does that change the way the law looks at it?
Not at all. Not at all. And in fact, if you looked at this case on its face, you would say this really shouldn't qualify for the death penalty, because it's a horrible murder. The pictures are graphic. He just shoots the guy in the back, just cold-blooded. It's awful. And he's presumed innocent, so we're just assuming they've got the right person. I don't know whether they do or not. The courts will figure that out. I shouldn't have even gone down that road, because it seems like they did get the right person. Nonetheless, it's a kind of a crime that normally wouldn't qualify for the death penalty. And so you keep pushing this question, which I think is really good. Why is this particular crime getting this type of notoriety, and is it because of who the victim is? Now, that's often the case. If you shoot a person who happens to be a police officer in Utah, boom, that's an aggravated factor. You shoot a person who happens to be a public figure, because they're a public figure, boom. This is neither of those. He's not a government official. He's not a law enforcement officer. He's not a prosecutor, something like that. He's a big shot with United Healthcare. He's a CEO there.
Yeah.
Does that make him, as a victim, more a case that makes it more that you'd more want the death penalty? I'm not phrasing this very well, but it doesn't really. But in Pam Bondi's case, our U.S. attorney, it does. She's saying this one goes a little bit too far. And the statement that's being made here, while it's not necessarily political, is certainly concerning, and maybe we need to take it more seriously.
Yeah, when I think about assassinations, I think about leaders of countries, not leaders of private businesses.
Right.
And that's where I think when we're looking at it, and whether it is domestic terrorism or whether it is just crime, it is interesting, the interpretation from every attorney, from the attorney general to the local district attorney, whoever it might be, and they might see these things very differently.
Yeah, and like I said, to make a murder into an aggravated murder, a death penalty case, you need some aggravating circumstance, which exists in almost every murder.
Right.
We could make almost every murder a death penalty case. So Pam Bondi's not pushing the envelope by any means here. What she's saying, though, is I'm going to make an example out of this person because of what he did and why he did it, and this is going to be a death penalty case.
I appreciate you breaking that down for us. Up next, we got some new data from Bankrate. It shows that how much money you need to make if you want to buy a home. This number, 6 figures, I'll tell you in just a few minutes what it actually looks like. But the amount of money you need to make to be able to afford a home is pretty shocking to me. But we'll check in on the efforts that Utah is making right now to make housing more affordable here in Utah.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
Every year, we seem to have a few people trying to get our free furnace promotion after the sale has ended. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and I know you want to save as much money as you can, but that's not how sales work. When they're over, they're over. Lucky for you, we still have a few more spots on our schedule we need to fill, so I'm extending the sale, but I'm not quite sure for how much longer. Definitely no later than April 30th, and once I think our schedule's full enough, I gotta pull these ads, so don't wait too long to call and schedule your free estimate. Just to recap, when you have Any Hour Services install a new air conditioner, we'll give you a new furnace for just the cost to install it. About $400. The furnace is free, you just pay the labor. So if your furnace and air conditioner are ready to be replaced, don't be one of those people that wishes they had called and taken advantage of our free furnace sale. The estimate's free, and we'll make sure you have all of the information you need to decide if our free furnace sale is right for you. If you think you might be interested, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Did you hear? A recent stash of $10 gold Liberty coins from the 1800s has been found. These gorgeous gold coins are as bright and shiny as the day they were struck in the late 1800s, and less than 200 of these gold coins are available. Coin experts are calling this gold find an incredible opportunity. Call 1-800-917-4635, and you are guaranteed a $10 gold Liberty coin minted by the U.S. Mint in the 1800s. But with extremely limited availability, you must call now. These gold Liberty coins from the 1800s are still in uncirculated condition. That is history you can hold in your hand. To learn more, call 1-800-917-4635. Call now and you'll receive a free American Coin Collector's Bonus Package, a $40 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-917-4635 now to secure your $10 gold Liberty coins dated from the 1800s before they sell out. That's 1-800-917-4635.
Most of us like to be out in the sun. That's why sunscreen and other safety measures are key to protecting your skin from aging and cancer. The FDA recommends using a sunscreen with a sun protection factor, or SPF, of 15 or higher. Also, look for broad spectrum on the label. That means both harmful ultraviolet A and B rays are blocked. UVA rays age the skin, UVB rays burn, and both cause cancer. But the perfect sunscreen doesn't count if you use it wrong. Don't need sunscreen on a cloudy day? Wrong. 80% of UV rays still get through the haze. Only use sunscreen at the beach? Nope. Anytime you're outside, UV rays attack the skin, so you need protection. And you have to reapply sunscreen every 2 hours. Remember, SPF plus broad spectrum equal healthy fun in the sun. Visit www.fda.gov/sunscreen for more information. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful when Mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. I wanted a better relationship with Dad, so I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Jeff Kaplan. I'm energized by breaking news. First of all, because it's right now, and second of all, because in many cases the audience needs to know. There's no more important service that we can provide, and I find it critically important to get more details to the audience as quickly as possible. There's nothing more energizing than that for me. Not at all. The most important thing we do is breaking news. I am gratified that so many people listen to me every afternoon on KSL, but what they don't know is that there are so many people behind the scenes making it happen, checking on the traffic, answering the phones, making the calls, talking to the newsmakers. They're out in the street, into the field to get the raw information, and then putting it all together so that I can sit in front of a microphone and be a source of information every afternoon. But there are so many people who make it happen. That's what you don't know.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
10 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Amanda Dixon. KSL's top story, Utah Senator John Curtis is asking the federal government for their support in expanding the frontrunner ahead of the 2034 Olympics. Curtis noted the frontrunner serves 80% of Utah's population, which will likely keep growing leading up to 2034. They want to get this done sooner rather than later. Utah Senator Mike Lee has proposed legislation that will increase work requirements to receive SNAP benefits. KSL News Radio's Brianna Willis reports.
Under this proposed bill, general work requirements will be extended to include anyone between ages 16 and 64. And currently, hour-based work requirements apply to anyone ages 18 to 49. Under the bill, that will go up to age 64. The bill also includes increased penalties for unauthorized users of SNAP cards, saying with 7 or more unauthorized uses, benefits will be suspended for at least 7 months. This comes after Utah Governor Spencer Cox signed a bill banning soda and candy purchases with SNAP. Brianna Willis, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News, Amazon is throwing its hat in the ring, expressing interest in buying TikTok. ABC News reports it joins other big tech firms like Oracle, as well as venture capital funds and private equity groups that are competing for the popular app. TikTok's Chinese parent company must sell the app by this Saturday or face another ban. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 3%. That's 1,282. We are down to 40,942. Coming up, looks like we've got clouds for today before a warming trend begins. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 10:02. Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
As a business owner looking to take your business to the next level, it's all about the right marketing. But what exactly is right for you? At KSL News Radio, we are ready to help you craft the perfect comprehensive strategy. Whether it's our powerful talent endorsements, engaging live interviews, creative production, live events, or our extensive digital platforms, we've got you covered with the right solution. Contact Stephanie Palmer today, spalmer@ksl.com, and let's grow your business together. Email spalmer@ksl.com.
Something about me, I don't like to settle. I work hard to be my best self, and I want a vehicle that matches. So I'm shopping for a Cadillac because their innovation and craftsmanship are top of the line. With a whole line of electric SUVs packed with state-of-the-art technology, I know I'll be driving away in redefined luxury. Help all of us at Jerry Seiner Cadillac celebrate our new location with an incredible buying experience for your dream car. Come in today to experience the Seiner difference.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out collection letters, garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it even harder to get out of debt. Don't let tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in taxpayer assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Let them fight on your behalf, helping to put your tax problems to rest. Call the tax professionals at Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
I've done multiple different eating plans before. They helped me get weight off, but boom, 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 it all just came back with a vengeance.
Stop wasting time and money on plans that don't work. Trust the #1 weight loss company in America, Soda Weight Loss.
My name's Jim. In 5 months, I dropped over 65 pounds.
Hi, I'm Jared. I'm at 21 weeks. I've lost 110 pounds.
I tried to do it on my own, and I think it's discouraging when you try over and over again and you just get nowhere. You have the experts here. If you're on the fence, I mean, if it hasn't worked out on your own, these are the people to do it.
When you start losing the weight, even that first 5 pounds, this enormous amount of confidence starts to build into you. You start to realize, like, oh, this is possible for me.
No shots, no medications, just real results that last for a lifetime.
How about this? When you join Soda Weight Loss with a partner, you only pay for one. Get started now. Go to sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com.
Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
Right now, water heaters are on sale at Any Hour Services. Schedule a free estimate today to see how much you'll save. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account with built-in benefits. And here's Heather Kelly.
Well, the good news is eastbound I-84 has reopened, but it looks like only one lane is open, so you still have residual delays between Reese Lane and the exit to Taggart's Grill. That's Taggart Lane. So just be prepared for an extra 10 or 15 minutes on your drive, but at least you can actually drive through Weber Canyon now, heading over to Echo. If you are southbound I-15, we've got stop-and-go traffic coming out of Ogden going past the Roy exit. I believe there's an accident in that road construction zone, but we haven't seen it yet on the cameras. And then if you're on the 201 freeway eastbound, a medical issue has blocked the right lane and shoulder right at the top of the on-ramp from Redwood Road to go eastbound 201. Common Spirit hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advanced healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with Human Kindness is here. Hello, Human Kindness. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today will be partly sunny in the valley, some rain and snow in the mountains. The clouds will stick around. Highs will be in the 50s. We get up to 70 by Monday. Right now it's 39 degrees. I'm Amanda Dixon from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio. Priced Out, housing, special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
There's a lot of numbers out there when we're talking about housing, and we can get lost in it. Like the average home, the median home price in Utah is $605,000.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And you look at what's happened just in the last 5 years, Dave, when we look at what the income would have been in Utah to buy a median priced home in 2020. In other words, the income you'd need to have to buy the average house was $80,000 a year. Today, 5 years later, to purchase a home like you just described, $600,000, which is the median price home, your income has to be $151,000 in Utah. In Utah, we're seventh in the nation in terms of the amount of income needed to buy the median priced home.
It's like New Jersey, New York, California, Massachusetts. It's Washington, and then Colorado, Utah. We are right up there at the top, and I think that is one of the most important. One of the most important numbers to look at is not just the shock factor of, hey, it's $600,000 to buy a house in Utah. It's, okay, well, what does that mean? How much money do I need to bring in as an individual or perhaps as a family to be able to buy a home? And I think that might explain why the average age of buying a home here in America is 38 years old for your first home.
Yeah.
38. So what are we doing about it? Because it is shocking. Well, the legislature, they've been trying to work on some of these strategies to improve housing costs here in Utah. So we thought we'd reach out to Utah Senior Advisor for Housing Strategy, Steve Waldrop. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. And as we're just kind of going through those numbers, where you have to make $150-something thousand as a family to be able to buy a home. I know this is something you guys are following very, very closely, but even that has to shock you.
Yeah, I mean, it makes. I've been just crying a little bit. I've been on mute because as you say those things, it just makes me hurt because it's so out of reach for the average middle class, up and coming Utah. Our kids and grandkids are looking at their future and saying, wait a minute, this future doesn't include me. Where do I need to go in order to, have the opportunity that, that I've always been promised, which is the ability to buy a home, get stable, start a family, do all of the things that, that we associate with adulting. And all of a sudden it's way out of reach.
Steve, what has happened in Utah in the last decade that's made it so popular and made it so expensive to live here? Because I'm looking at some of these other states, and they're not. I mean, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Ohio. I mean, Oregon. I mean, states that you would think would be similar to Utah, that are much less than that. What is it about Utah that has made housing prices so high?
Well, I think, there's a combination of a couple of key factors. One is our land scarcity. We have a tract of land trapped between a mountain and a lake, and that's where the bulk of our population lives. And you go outside of that, and it becomes really difficult from an infrastructure standpoint to deliver housing. We see what's happening where we're kind of bubbling out into Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain, and we're going up north and we're going south into southern Utah County. Washington County is exploding, but our land scarcity is really one of the things driving it. And then the other one is the one we all know. Utah's awesome. It's a fantastic place to live. People come here, people see it, and they say, we want what you have, which is great communities, great people, safe environment, great place to raise children. I look ahead at the next 10 years. We're going to have the Olympics. We're going to have, all kinds of world events here. We've already got the PGA Tour in southern Utah. We're going to get more and more attractive relative to the places where people are moving from over the course of the next 10 years, without question.
So if there's such an incredible demand, then I know obviously this has been something increasing that supply. The governor has wanted to bring 35,000 new starter homes to Utah. But even at that, how many homes and what kind of growth are we looking at? And is it even achievable with the demand of people that want to come here?
Well, at today's demand, we're looking at over 200,000 new housing units by 2030. You go out to 2034 in the Olympics, we're at 274,000, I think is the latest forecast. The other factor that I think hasn't really been highlighted is the fact that our housing, the number of people per unit is also dramatically decreasing. So as our population increases, and we've gone from, 5.2 people per household to 3.7, 2.7 in some communities now. Now you've got this added impact of smaller household units. So we have, even with the same population, you need more units because our household sizes are smaller. So that's the other factor that really is at play here when we look at the demand for additional housing units. And it's a daunting task.
Steve, what can be done, or maybe what should be done from your perspective and maybe from the legislature's perspective to get these numbers in line? Or is it a priority for the legislature? Because what we're seeing is that people are leaving the state of Utah because they can't afford to live here. On the other hand, like you said, it's a very desirable place to be, and people want to come here. But what can be done to bring these numbers in line with other states that are comparable to us?
Yeah, and you've hit it on the head. I mean, we're losing our young people and we're replacing them with imports. And, one of the things that comes with growth and change is, people say you're going to ruin my way of life by adding this neighborhood, by adding this density. And frankly, the quickest way to lose our way of life is to send our kids and grandkids out and replace them with people that that are not from here, and that will have a greater impact on our quality of life and our way of life than anything else. So a few of the things that have been done in the last couple of years, the legislature's been wrestling with some of these big questions. What is appropriate for local control? What's appropriate for the state to step in? We're providing new pathways for condo creation and condo ownership, which has been a missing piece in our housing infrastructure for a number of years, 15 years. So we've created a program to address that, where we're going to focus on taking and building more density in appropriate places, but also making it for ownership and not just rental, because that's one of the keys that we look at when we try to figure out how to help our young people have a desire and ability to stay here.
I'm looking at a recent legislative audit that said we need to build 28,000 new housing units annually. How many are we building right now? And to make up the deficit, how much will we need to build?
Yeah, great question. In 2024, we built around 23,000. And so we lost 5,000 to our need, and our deficit going in to 2024 or to 2025 was 37,000 housing units. So we're now in the low 40s as far as our deficit. And if we don't change some things, that deficit will continue to grow. And you have the law of supply and demand. It's always going to rule. If you have fewer things than people want, the price is going up. And that's where we are with housing. If you have balance, then things are going to be appropriately priced. And if you have too much of something, more than people want, the price is going to go down. And we've been on the lower end of the supply side of that for a number of years. And if we don't change that, there's going to continue to be pressure on pricing to continue going up and up and up.
Steve, you talked earlier in this segment about the growth problem and the fact that there's almost no more room in the inn. We're talking about the Wasatch Front especially. Do you see parts of the state, and you did mention Washington County, but do you see other parts of the state that could pick up the slack where housing could increase? And because you're right, I mean, we've got the mountains on the east and the lake on the west, and we're filling it up quickly. But where else could that growth go?
There's a few interesting thoughts there. So if you look at some of our more rural communities, you look at Price, significant energy project going on out there right now. They don't have sufficient housing for the workers that they need. Go to Delta with the energy project out there. There's not enough housing in that community for what they need. We've got workforce that is gradually, shifting out to some of our rural areas, but we don't have the infrastructure to support it. And so that's one of the things we're looking at over the course of this interim going into next year is what are our infrastructure needs? How can we finance those needs? One of the concerns that the communities have is we don't want to, pay for the new citizens on the backs of our existing citizens. How can we balance the need for additional infrastructure to accommodate growth and really have it tied to those who are coming into those communities? That there's opportunity there to shift some of that growth off of the Wasatch Front and into some of our more rural communities in an appropriate way. I think that's a need that we have long term. You look at Washington County, we have a tremendous amount, a frightening amount, 100,000 acres plus of federal land that is within our city boundaries. BLM land in southern Utah, Forest Service land in northern Utah, where we have infrastructure capacity, and we've just grown around these parcels of federally owned land that aren't parks. They're not recreation areas. They're just land that's underutilized. And so that's one of the other opportunities that we're looking at with this new administration, with our new Secretary of the Interior, to identify those areas where we can appropriately put housing and affordable housing on those federal land parcels.
Steve Waldrop, thank you so much for joining us, Utah's Senior Advisor for Housing Strategy. We will continue to follow this, but the shocking number is you have to make $151,000 here in Utah. If you want to buy a home, which the median home price is $605,000 here in Utah, you need to make $151,000. Now, 5 years ago, Greg, you saw this 5 years ago. How much did you need to make to be able to buy a home?
Significantly less than that. It's increased by 89%. 5 years ago, you needed to earn $80,000 a year to buy a medium-priced home. Today, $151,000.
My goodness, that is incredible. Hey, we got some breaking news coming from the KSL newsroom. Heather, what do you got?
Well, the mom who was involved in that incident in Saratoga Springs last week, we now know she has died. An obituary posted online today says 44-year-old Jessica Lyman died actually on Monday. Her 8-year-old son, Eli Painter, had died at the scene on Friday. Police still haven't revealed details about their deaths or if they're looking for a suspect in this case, but we do know from the obituary that she died and that they're having a public viewing for her on April 7th.
A tragic story. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us that update. Greg, as we return to the conversation about housing here in Utah, where you have to make $151,000, it's almost $152,000 according to Bankrate. It's $151,956, so $152,000. The amount of money you had to make 5 years ago, just $80,000 here in Utah, it's nearly doubled. Obviously, here in Utah, we didn't see our wages go up like that. So it has just priced out an entire, probably half the country, half the state.
Yeah, and what's surprising also, Dave, is that a median house in Utah now is $605,000. I mean, you think about 5 years ago, a $600,000 house would be a palace. I mean, it is today.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still a very, very nice house, but that's your median house. That means there's just as many below as above that. So if you're buying a house, that's going to be your midpoint is $605,000. So they've done a calculation here. The mortgage would be about $3,200 a month. That's why a home buyer needs to have that $151,000 of annual income, is just to afford that $3,200 a month in mortgage. That may have something to do with interest rates, which have gone up over the last 5 years. Certainly, they've bounced down a little bit, maybe not too much, but that's a stiff mortgage payment.
Some recent polling has showed that Utahns, about 33% of Utahns have considered moving out.
Yeah,
saying, you know what, Utah, I'm done. What were some of the areas that you saw? Where do you have to make the least amount of money that you could see around the country? What were some of the places? Tell me, West Virginia. If I wanted to move out to West Virginia, how much do I need to make to be able to buy a house compared to our $152,000?
Just $64,000. Almost,
Greg,
about 40%. I mean, West Virginia, to buy a median price house, $64,000. The bottom five are the least expensive five, I should say. West Virginia, Iowa, Ohio, Mississippi, and Indiana, where we're all well under half of Utah price. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well under half of the Utah income needed to buy a median home. But the top states are not surprising. You got the District of Columbia, Hawaii, California, Massachusetts, and Colorado. Colorado's number 5, not very far above Utah. I think you said you did the calculation. We're number 7 in the country of income needed to buy a medium-priced home.
Worst place to live? I'm saying financially, the place you need to make more money, significantly more money, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, California, Washington, Colorado, and then we hit Utah. But I wonder how many of us look at this and say to ourselves, let's say I'm bringing in $151,000, $152,000 to buy a home in Utah. You could go to West Virginia, take a $50,000 pay cut, and you would still be better off buying a home in West Virginia than you would be here in Utah.
Of course, you'd be living in West Virginia. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure it's a beautiful state. And I think about John
You're
Denver.
not wrong.
That John Denver, that beautiful song.
They got a great song.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you only have to make $67,000.
I'm sure it's an incredible state.
Wisconsin is $87,000. Texas is just $105,000 is how much you need to make. But once you start moving a little farther west, obviously not a big surprise that California, you got to make $213, Oregon $140,000 almost. Washington is above us, $164,000. I guess you could look at Hawaii. I always discount Hawaii just because, yeah, that's the most expensive.
Right.
$235.
And I've got 3 children, none of whom live in Utah. And I always think, as a father and as a grandfather, come back home to Utah. But you think, how am I going to convince my kids to come back home to Utah when we're the 7th most expensive state to live if you want to buy a home?
You buy the Scortus compound.
There you go.
That's
right.
the key.
I'm going to have to buy a big house and let them all live there.
You have a big tract of land. You just build it all for them because it seems like that's just about the only way to get it done. But we want to thank Steve Waldrop for joining us on the show. He's Utah's senior advisor for housing strategy, and obviously something that the state of Utah has looked at, is following closely, trying to figure out what's the best way to handle it. Because quite frankly, at this point, we're probably looking at a housing crisis, we can call it.
Yeah, and the good news, bad news. It's a very desirable place to live. People want to come here. Bad news, housing prices are through the roof.
Yeah.
So, you can't have it both ways.
If you're selling right now, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Unless you have to rebuy.
Unless you have to buy something
Utah.
else. Yep.
So sell here and then go move to West Virginia. You are golden. All right, time is running out on TikTok's deadline to sell or face a ban in the U.S. The latest extension to keep it open, it's going to end on Saturday, folks. The same thing's going to happen again. You're going to go to your TikTok feed. You're going to open it. They're like, sorry, we're banned here in the U.S., but there's a new potential buyer, probably one of the biggest buyers you can think of. Does this get it done? Next.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend, Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission. Free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today?
I need new rotors.
When you buy 2 Duralast rotors during our spring sale, you get Duralast brake pads free.
Free?
With the rotors.
Well, that's great. What if I need extra stopping power?
You can upgrade to Duralast Gold pads for just $10.
So Duralast pads are free?
Yep.
And an upgrade is just $10?
That's right. Part of the spring sale at AutoZone.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
Comcast Business helps turn today's small businesses into engines of modern business. It's how restaurants become reliably up and running neighborhood favorites. How retailers become seamlessly restocking, cyber-securing, must-visit shops. And how healthcare offices become the data managing caregivers that we all depend on. With reliable connectivity, enhanced cybersecurity, advanced fiber solutions, and Wi-Fi backup, Comcast Business is powering the engine of modern business. Powering possibilities.
Now through April 21st, new customers can get started with 150 megabit internet and security edge for $49.99 a month for 12 months with a 2-year agreement. Plus, ask how to get a $500 prepaid card on a qualifying internet package. Call today. Restrictions apply. Not available in all areas. Requires enrollment in paperless billing and automatic payments with bank account. Equipment, taxes, and other fees extra and subject to change. Early termination fee applies.
Hi, it's Julie from the Visitors Bureau in Logan. I'm here to make your spring break planning so easy. Here we go. Reserve your hotel room right now. Don't miss the original Baby Animal Days at the American West Heritage Center, April 2nd through the 5th and 10th through the 12th. Watch your kids and grandkids cuddle all the baby animals like lambs, goats, piglets, bunnies, and chicks. So adorable! Or forget the kids, you'll love them too. Baby bears from Yellowstone Bear World will be here April 2nd through the 5th, combined with the Cache Valley Mountain Man Rendezvous, non-stop adventure. Next, head to the Cache Valley Fun Park for laser tag, roller skating, bowling, and arcade games. Take your family to Angie's for the kitchen sink, a mountainous banana split on steroids served in an actual sink. Pick up a life supply of goldfish crackers at the Pepperidge Farm Factory or see them hand-dipping chocolates at the Bluebird Candy Company. Head to Logan for spring break or anytime you need a break. ExploreLogan.com. ExploreLogan.com.
Jeff Kaplan. When you're online, that's sometimes a source of fourth-hand information. Somebody does the reporting. Another website Googles, they find it, they rewrite it, and by the time you read it, you know the old game telephone. But KSL is a source of primary information. We have reporters on the street. They're out in the field finding out the details. And the difference between online and KSL News Radio, night and day.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
It's 10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Verl Johansson. KSL's top local story this hour is breaking news. The mom who was involved in an incident in Saratoga Springs has died. An obituary posted online today says 44-year-old Jessica Lyman died on Monday. Her 8-year-old son, Eli Painter, had died at the scene on Friday. Police still haven't revealed details about their deaths or if they are looking for a suspect in this case. There is a memorial balloon launch for Eli on Saturday at 4 p.m. at Riverview Elementary School. There will also be a public viewing for Eli and Jessica on Monday. The human remains discovered last week in San Juan County have been identified. Police say the remains are of Raymond Ankofsky. Him and his wife Miranda went missing last June in the Steel Bender Trail area along Mill Creek. The two were visiting from Texas. Their UTV was found empty after they went missing. Miranda's body was found a short time afterwards, but Raymond's was found just last week, about 37 miles from the wreckage. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A bad morning on Wall Street is getting worse as markets react to the Trump administration's sweeping new tariffs.
The Dow has plummeted nearly 4%, and the Nasdaq is down almost 5%. The S&P, meanwhile, has lost more than $1.5 trillion in value so far in early trading. Companies with big manufacturing operations in China, like Nike and Apple, are being especially hard hit after the Trump administration leveled 34% tariffs on the country, on top of existing 20% tariffs.
ABC's Mike Dubusky reporting. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 1,100 points, S&P 500 down 200, NASDAQ down 820. Coming up, cloudy skies in the 50s. KSL weather's next. KSL News Time, 10:31.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
How does a soccer club born in an unlikely place,
Utah? You sure you want to do that in Utah?
built with players no one else wanted,
We knew no one believed in us.
reach the league's highest heights?
We finally did it. It was like just this feeling of getting to the top of the mountain.
How does that same team find a way to shatter expectations in the midst of a fight for its own survival?
Our club is burning to the ground as we speak.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and in a new podcast, Making of a Moment, the RSL story, we take a closer look at one of those iconic sports moments
Soccer is a crazy game, and we saw it firsthand tonight.
and unravel how knowing the truth of these moments can transform what they mean.
I just kind of got chills right now thinking about it.
Making of a Moment, the RSL story, is available now. Follow us at makingamomentpod.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account with built-in benefits. Here's Heather Kelly.
Well, it looks like UHP has just shifted where I-84 eastbound is closed. Now everyone is being forced to exit into Morgan City itself to make their way around this crash that happened just before you get to the Taggart's Grill area. So you're still going to have issues trying to get into Weber Canyon on I-84 eastbound, and you may want to avoid that for a while. We also have slowdowns northbound I-15 coming out of Clearfield into Roy. That's in the road construction zone. No problems, though, on the rest of I-15 in Utah or Salt Lake counties, and snow continues to fall at the higher elevations of Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons. If you see something on the roadways, please text us at Mountain Home Services. The text line is always open at 57500. Break your routine and into adventure in Cedar City, Bryan Head. Connected to nature, Cedar City makes spring the best break ever. Shopping, dining, and recreation galore. Break up your adventure. Visit cedarcity.com. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today will be partly sunny in the valley with some rain and snow in the upper elevations of the mountains. The clouds are going to stick around, though, with highs in the 50s. Right now, it's mostly cloudy and 40 degrees in Salt Lake City. I'm Verl Johansson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
Are we seriously going to go through this all over again? Are we going to lose TikTok? But instead of just the 12 hours like it was back on January 19th, is it going to be longer?
You can't do this!
This is TikTokers.
You can't take away TikTok!
No, it does sound kind of crazy because it's mostly like little clips of comedians for me. I had a steady diet of like home projects, like how to refinish a basement. That's what's in my feed right now. But it is important, I think, to acknowledge there's a lot of Americans, hundreds of thousands of Americans that make money, that are influencers because of TikTok. And they are hugely invested in what happens, whether or not it gets banned here in Utah.
So if you recall, Congress passed a law some time ago that said TikTok needed to divest itself of Chinese ownership or not be part of the American economy. That is to say, they felt like TikTok was too tied to the Chinese government and said, look, TikTok, you can exist. You can stay in America, but you can't be owned by the Chinese government. And TikTok said, well, we're not owned by the Chinese government, but we've got some people that own it. And the legislature said, no, you've got to divest yourself. That went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court of the United States said, we're going to support that law. So TikTok, it was, and this is kind of like the tariffs on Canada. They're here, they're not. We have TikTok. There was a day or two, right? Well, like I don't know, a couple months ago when you couldn't get on TikTok. I don't have TikTok.
12 hours.
Yeah, 12 hours. It was gone. Trump is somewhat of a fan of TikTok. He said, "I think I'll save it," but the drop dead date from Congress and supported by the Supreme Court, whether Trump wants it or not, is coming up. I think it's 2 days away, April 5th, and somebody's got to buy TikTok, or again, it could be shut down.
And there is a new bidder. Now the question is like, who can buy TikTok? It is valued over $100 billion. I've seen estimates go anywhere from $75 billion to $300 billion. So I don't know what actually it's going to go for, but how many buyers are out there that can raise $75 billion or $100 billion or $150 billion to procure this?
I'll tell you this, though. The price is going down by the minute as we get closer to that drop dead day. Yeah. And Amazon wasn't jumping into this a month ago. Oh, I just blew your cover. Amazon has put in a last minute bid, but they waited. They waited till the last few days because you get your best price when the company is maybe going to take a huge hit because America's got to be its biggest customer.
So Amazon, it's so fascinating because obviously anyone that's used Amazon Prime, and there's so many layers to this that we love Amazon in our lives. There's not many people that can afford this, but walk me through, what are your thoughts on this company? And we're so concerned about big tech and technology and monopolies and the size of some of these ginormous companies. You start adding TikTok to Amazon's portfolio, that becomes one of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah, and you wonder if you're going to look at this from an antitrust standpoint, like you said, is Amazon too big? On the other hand, if TikTok has to have a U.S. buyer by Saturday, maybe the regulators give Amazon a little bit of a leeway, a little bit of a wink and a nod, and say, look, if you're going to save this company and you're going to divest it of Chinese ownership, You're a U.S. buyer. Buy it by Saturday. Maybe we'll sort out the antitrust problems later.
It's so fascinating when we talk about this. Obviously, there's a lot of people that love TikTok just because it's enjoyable. It's mindless scrolling that we like. There's other people that make a lot of money on it because they're influencers. But I look at the other Chinese companies that are out there because the reason we're talking about TikTok and making them sell to an American company is we're concerned about the security of TikTok itself, that the Chinese government could be pulling our information, our data, our trends, and that they could use it for nefarious reasons, right? That's the argument
exactly.
of why we can't use TikTok. How is that threat any different than, say, other popular apps and other popular companies like Shein or Temu, which are extremely popular? I don't think my daughter has bought a blouse or pants from any other place than the Chinese company Shein through their app. Why do you think that it is TikTok that is getting all the wrath of the United States government while you have Temu and Shein able to work, and we haven't addressed that at all?
I don't know, maybe retailers are looked at a little differently, Dave, and maybe the fact that people are on TikTok all day long and the algorithms that are being created, that we're learning what American youth look at, we're learning what American youth think about, we're learning about what interests them, and we're taking them away from school. I mean, I've never had TikTok. I've never downloaded the app. I don't know much about it. But I did have an employee once that was on TikTok all day long. And I was like, come on, answer the phone. You know, just like all day he's just sitting here watching funny dog videos or whatever it was. I was like, this is nuts. I didn't like it. And I think somebody's done some studies that it can become addictive after some period of time, that you sit there and watch it for 35 minutes straight and boom, you're hooked. That's a problem. I don't know that you find the same thing from these sites that you can buy products from China.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great point, because the addictive nature of it is something that we haven't seen. And TikTok changed the game. This endless scroll, short videos. When social media first comes out, it's, hey, Greg, I want to keep up with your life, see how you're doing, what's new. That's great. I'm going to friend you, and whenever you decide to share something, then I will see it. Now it has turned into television and channel surfing. That is quite honestly how I view TikTok, is how I used to channel surf when the remote first came out. I'm just blasting through it and watching just short snippets of television until I find something that interests me. So TikTok has changed the game, the way we use social media, and every other social media entity has followed suit. So whether it's Instagram or X, Facebook, they have these endless scrolling feeds available.
Yeah, and Trump, we talked about a minute ago, really wants to save the app. He's talked about it. Of course, he's flip-flopped a little bit. Back in his first term, he was not a fan of TikTok and the Chinese government and whatnot. For some reason, he's changed his tune a little bit, and he's the reason I think that we got the stay of execution, if you will, that gave TikTok until this Friday. He may grant them another one. Who knows? He took credit for bringing it back after the 12 hours, and although I think Biden was still the chief at the time, it was a little unclear who actually did it, right? But TikTok,
Biden had 1 day left.
Yeah, Trump gave him a reprieve. Maybe we'll give him another reprieve. But again, Congress passed the law and the Supreme Court's upheld it, so Trump can only do so much.
So that's such a great point, Greg, and such a great reminder that this is so much is done right now in the U.S. government by executive order.
Right.
And what can be done by executive order can be undone by executive order. But this was bipartisan. This is Republicans and Democrats coming together and saying, TikTok is a threat. You've got to sell to some American company. You know, we're not going to ban you completely as long as you sell to some American company. And that was obviously the president, it binds his hands a little bit.
And it wasn't an executive order. It was congressional law.
Yes.
And that's a different branch of government, and Trump, there's very little that he can do about it. We'll see what he does. Amazon has certainly jumped to the fore and said, maybe we can take advantage of TikTok's bad week that's ahead, and maybe they'll buy it, and we'll have a U.S. buyer, and then everybody will have their TikTok again. Still.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll see. Is it more than the 12 hours that happened back in January? We'll see. When we come back, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has announced federal charges against a Colorado man accused of setting a Cybertruck on fire. But the sentence that she is seeking, again, shocking. Tough on crime, but is it too much? Next.
Delegate the work and chores and navigate your way to Beatty, Nevada and elevate your springtime level of adventure, where daytime temperatures average 70 degrees and the dark night skies are awe-inspiring. Visit Beatty for your spring break, where you can explore hundreds of miles of scenic trails, perfect for hiking, mountain biking, and ATV adventures. Explore the historic ghost town of Rhyolite, view sculptures in the desert at the Goldwell Open Air Museum, and visit Eddy World, Nevada's largest candy store. Beatty is 7 miles from the most scenic entrance to Death Valley National Park, offers award-winning chili at the Happy Burro Chili, or Old Family Recipe ribs smoked daily at Smokin' Jay's. Find affordable lodging at the Stagecoach Hotel or the Atomic Inn, known for its quirky alien theme. Beatty RV Parks also offer 50-amp pull-throughs. Make a visit on April 26 for the annual Off-Road Poker Run. Details at BeattyNevada.org.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduced stroke risk better than warfarin, and over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. It may increase your stroke risk. Eliquis can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding, unusual bruising, or tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. Medications such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners may increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Dave and Dujanovic.
A 24-year-old man who was charged and accused of torching some Tesla dealerships in Colorado is facing enormous penalties or an enormous sentence, up to 20 years for this vandalism from U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi. She took to X on Monday. She announced that there were going to be federal charges of this man who had attacked this Tesla dealership in Loveland, Colorado. Greg Skordas is joining us right now, filling in for Debbie Dujanovic. You're a KSL legal analyst, and we've had a couple conversations today as whether it is the state of Idaho or the Trump administration, the Attorney General, but it does seem like there is a concerted effort and a move forward, a trend of cracking down on crime and being tough on crime.
You have to wonder, Dave, what she's saying is, if in the wave of domestic terrorism against Tesla properties, we will find you, arrest you, and put you behind bars. If this same individual had gone to the Ford dealership across the street and conducted the exact same activity, would we be having that conversation? And I would submit, Dave, that the answer is no. So TikTok is being treated almost like a national treasure, or that's somehow domestic terrorism because they're attacking TikTok. And of course, Tesla.
Sorry. The previous segment was
TikTok, Tesla. Everybody's under attack these days. But I mean, it's clearly a cover for Musk, who is helping the White House. He's doing what he needs to do, and these are attacks against him personally. But are they attacks against the government? That's a little bit more of a stretch, I guess.
It is, and I think when you're looking at domestic terrorism and perhaps even broadening that term, I thought it was interesting what you had said earlier, where you said you can look at just about any crime and add some sort of aggravating factor to it if you wanted to.
Right.
And it does feel like when we're looking at crimes in America, we don't want to overcharge, we don't want to undercharge. What I want to see is consistency. And that's where I feel like the frustration starts coming through. It can't be different depending on what the administration is, right? If we're going to torch a car in downtown Salt Lake during riots and protests, then that needs to be treated the same as riots and protests that torch a Tesla dealership, right? And I think it's whenever we get hints or senses of inconsistency, that's what scares us, because the law is supposed to be blind to all of that stuff, and it's supposed to be consistent from year to year, ignoring any changes in the government.
Yeah, and it's also like the Mangione case, where we talked earlier about the fact that an individual commits a crime, in that case murder, in this case violence against the Tesla dealership, where the state jumps in and says, that's a crime, we're going to charge you with it. And this Cooper Joe Frederick was charged from the incident from March 14th with, under the state code, with possessing an incendiary device, which is a cool name for a bomb, and manufacturing an incendiary device, criminal mischief, which is vandalism, and use of an incendiary device in a felony. Those are state crimes that I would submit without knowing that particular code do not carry 20 years in prison. Those are property crimes. They're vandalism. They're destruction of property crimes, which in Utah, on a good day, would be like a 1 to 15. You know what I mean? So with the feds coming in with much more serious charges and saying, no, we're going to make this a federal crime, they're saying we're actually looking to put him in prison for 20 years. Can both cases proceed parallel? Just like with the Mangione case, they probably can, and they probably will if Pam Bondi is true to what she's saying, and that is we're going to make this a federal case, notwithstanding that the state of Colorado is already prosecuting him with the crime that occurred there.
I was trying to figure out exactly what is the government's definition of domestic terrorism. So I did a little research. I went to congress.gov, and they describe it like this, and I want to get your reaction because, again, understanding that you can make, in many cases, a square peg fit into a round hole in many cases. I want to read this. And does this, have we broadened domestic terrorism, or is this just the definition? So this is how congress.gov describes domestic terrorism. Ideologically driven crimes committed by individuals in the United States intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, or to influence the policy of the government. And with Elon Musk's connection to the Department of Government Efficiency being one of President Trump's top advisors, obviously these attacks on Tesla have nothing to do with Tesla themselves.
Right.
It is because of the work that Elon Musk is doing in the government that has made him polarizing.
Right, and that's the problem, and that's the hook, is how can you make something that is clearly a state crime also a federal crime? You know, and you can pigeonhole most bad activities into some crime, but how is this a federal crime? Well, you have to look at exactly the language you just read, which is, does it fit within the four squares of that, or is there some other federal connection? Can they prove that the incendiary device, the bomb, had parts that traveled in interstate commerce? I know that's weird, but did they buy everything there in Colorado? If so, you got to look for another federal nexus. You got to find another reason to bring it into the federal crime. Bring it into the federal courts, I should say, and that is, we're going to define this as domestic terrorism because it's designed to, what was the words you used, attack an individual or a philosophy or you know what I mean?
Influence a policy or the conduct of the government.
Yeah, and so what was this individual's purpose? Sure, it's obvious that there are a lot of attacks against Elon Musk and against Tesla, and so you could assume that somebody who vandalizes a Tesla as opposed to a Ford is doing so for a different reason.
Yes.
Under today's climate.
And as we're looking at vandalism, because as you described it, you're right. It is a vehicle, but I guess not all vehicles are the same, right? When we had our police car torched in downtown Salt Lake, that's different than broken windows at the Capitol, on January 6th versus painting in protest the street red outside of the district attorney's office, right? So when we're looking at vandalism and we're looking at this, I think oftentimes we talk about it in the moment, but we don't realize whatever happened to it. So as an attorney who's dealt with this as a defense attorney and as a prosecutor, do you see consistency? And that's, I guess, my big question is the way we are treating these things and treating the quote-unquote vandalism, whether it's the torch car, the torch Tesla, or the January 6 riots.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're looking at a lot of these crimes in a political lens, which we shouldn't, and which we haven't in the past. We look at Mangione, we look at January 6, we look at Tesla, and saying those are crimes. They're fairly clearly defined crimes. But is there a political motive behind them or a political incentive behind them? And if so, does that make it a different crime or a more serious crime or a federal crime which otherwise wouldn't exist? And we're dealing with these different jurisdictions, state versus federal, in ways that we haven't in the past. And the two we talked about today are perfect examples, because you would somebody blows up or burns a Tesla dealership, they're going to prosecute by the local district attorney. The feds don't get involved in that. Typically, they are in these cases that we've talked about today for political reasons. And I think Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice under Trump, is saying we're going to look at crimes through that political lens and say if there is a political backstory to it, maybe we're going to bring it into the federal courts. Because let's face it, the punishment in federal system is almost always more serious than what you get in the state system.
Yeah, and perhaps a greater deterrent, which is a part of the equation as well. When we come back, the stock market's continuing to react as President Trump unveiled these sweeping tariffs yesterday. Boy, paid the price early this morning. Has the Dow rebounded from Liberation Day? Are we headed into a recession? We ask a financial planner next.
Jeff Kaplan. When I was a kid, my parents got me a subscription to Newsweek magazine. I would devour every page into the night. And to this day, I sit on my iPad looking for stories for my Minute of News, flesh out our coverage, and I get to share the news with you.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
Since 1954, Master Electrical Service has been serving you and your community. We have some exciting news. They are now joining forces with Mountain Home Services. And I can tell you, I've had Mountain Home Services in my home installing my furnace years ago. Then they'd come in and they would do the service on it. It was fantastic. Just absolutely great work. And I was so happy to have them in our home, their expertise. And now that you have Master Electrical Service joining and you have the electrical needs taken care of, if you need recessed lighting, generators, anything, string and Romex in an unfinished basement, right? They can take care of all of this stuff. But with Mountain Home Services, you're adding that expertise of HVAC, your heating and air, your plumbing, and it all still comes with an upfront pricing guarantee, no hidden fees, 100% satisfaction guarantee. Go ahead and reach out to them online. MountainHomeservices.com is the website, MountainHomeservices.com, or you can call them. Easy number to remember, 801-543. Just start dialing twos, 801-543-2222.
It's Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I've got something important to talk to you about, your 401k. If you have changed jobs, there are two very important considerations. You don't want to leave your 401k behind, and you don't want to roll it over into your new company plan without consulting Trajan Wealth first. 401ks will often have limited investments or age-based options. Since companies have to make choices to suit all employees, they may not be suited to you, which could cost you fees and money. When you roll over your 401k into an IRA, you not only keep your money growing tax deferred, but you also gain access to a world of investment options specifically designed for you. Trajan Wealth and our fiduciary advisors have helped thousands, and we can do the same for you. Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600. 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Are you a small business owner who needs immediate cash flow? At Swish Funding, we have flexible funding options from $25,000 to $2 million. For the best rates and terms for your business, just one application to Swish Funding gives you access to our entire network of funders, with cash in your account in as little as 24 hours. To qualify, you must be in business for at least 1 year with monthly revenue of $50,000. Apply at swishradio.com and use code GROW. Swishradio.com, code GROW.
Taxes was taxing. Now taxes is relaxing when you file for free.
I can file for free? TurboTax Free Edition. Roughly 37% of filers qualify. Simple Form 1040 returns only. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free. I can file for free.
Now this is taxes. File for free with TurboTax Free Edition and get your maximum refund. No schedules except for earned income tax credit, child tax credit, and student loan interest. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with a Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jessica Lowell. KSL's top story this hour, an update on the woman who was shot in Saratoga Springs last week. Police now confirmed to KSL TV she has died. An obituary posted online today says 44-year-old Jessica Lyman died on Monday. Her 8-year-old son, Eli Painter, died at the scene on Friday. The circumstances of the shooting are still unclear, and police haven't said if they have a person of interest. An Amber Alert is getting spruced up, and as part of that, your phone will start buzzing and making a lot of noise.
We are doing some programmatic updates that we want to ensure that everything is going to be successful, so that in the next time we have a real Amber Alert, everything goes out to the public, to the media, and the resources and things properly.
Mandy B. Singer with the Bureau of Criminal Identification says you might hear the distinct alarm on your phone at around 4 o'clock, but you don't have to do anything. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A bad morning on Wall Street is getting worse as markets react to the Trump administration sweeping new tariffs.
The Dow has plummeted nearly 4%, and the Nasdaq is down almost 5%. The S&P, meanwhile, has lost more than $1.5 trillion in value so far in early trading. Companies with big manufacturing operations in China, like Nike and Apple, are being especially hard hit after the Trump administration leveled 34% tariffs on the country, on top of existing 20% tariffs.
ABC's Mike Dubusky there, and the Dow currently down 1,255 points. Coming up, warmer weather every day. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 11:02.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
I've done multiple different eating plans before. They helped me get weight off, but boom, 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 it all just came back with a vengeance.
Stop wasting time and money on plans that don't work. Trust the #1 weight loss company in America, Soda Weight Loss.
My name's Jim. In 5 months, I dropped over 65 pounds.
Hi, I'm Jared. I'm at 21 weeks. I've lost 110 pounds.
I tried to do it on my own, and I think it's discouraging when you try over and over again and you just get nowhere. You have the experts here. If you're on the fence, I mean, if it hasn't worked out on your own, these are the people to do it.
When you start losing the weight, even that first 5 pounds, this enormous amount of confidence starts to build into you. You start to realize, like, oh, this is possible for me.
No shots, no medications, just real results that last for a lifetime.
How about this? When you join Soda Weight Loss with a partner, you only pay for one. Get started now. Go to sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com.
Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
Hey, are you nervous about this stock market volatility and what will happen with tariffs, taxes, and Social Security? you're invited to a free educational event with Jeff Bush. Jeff's been featured in Investment News and CNBC. He's a nonpartisan authority that talks about this is what's going on in Washington right now. Here's how it could impact you. And these are the actionable strategies that could protect and grow your retirement savings. This event is hosted by Boss Retirement Solutions. See Jeff Bush live on Thursday, April 10th at 6:30 p.m. in downtown Salt Lake. Reserve your free ticket now by calling 801-850-6988. That's 801-850-6988. 801-850-6988.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Boss Retirement Solutions and Advisors paid Jeff Bush for his appearance, but he is not affiliated with our firm.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, do it now. Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Emergency traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account with built-in benefits. Here's Heather Kelly.
This is for the closure of eastbound I-84. All traffic is forced to exit into Morgan City. That's State Road 66. So you've got about a mile to 2 miles of backup for people trying to exit there. It's due to a semi that crashed further up the road near Taggart's Grill, so that's why everybody's being forced off the freeway. The good news is everybody else looks good on I-15, the east and west side belt routes, 201 freeway. All those roads are dry, but snow continues to fall in the higher elevations, so you have very wet roadways through a lot of the canyons. Water belongs to the pipes, not in your yard or on your floor. Call Utah Utility Pro, your leak detection and repair specialist. Water, sewer, main, and gas lines. Utah Utility Pro, utahutilitypro.com. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
A couple of spring showers rolling in and out today. Those will mostly stay in the mountains. Temperatures are getting warmer and warmer every day. By next week, we'll be back to 70s and sunshine. Right now, it's 43 degrees and mostly cloudy. I'm Jessica Lowe from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com or Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio. Dave and Dujanovic, special coverage of the top national story.
Yesterday was this.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
And Liberation Day, and the tariffs happened. They'll take effect, tomorrow? On Friday, I think so. Or is that TikTok? I'm getting everything mixed up.
Yeah, I think there's a day or two before they kick in, but yes.
But basically, the tariffs are kicking on. It was Liberation Day, and then this morning, can't be totally surprised that the markets did not love that announcement as President Trump was talking about massive tariffs, up to 50% in some cases. And there was a 1,500-point loss in the Dow at some point.
It just got almost to 1,600. Now it's bounced back to 12 and change, but it's still... It was almost 4% down. Now it's only 3% down.
Yeah. 3% is 4%
right. In one day.
Right. So, yeah, we saw some massive changes. And what is that going to look like? And yesterday when President Trump was announcing this in the Rose Garden, it was a little bit like a rally. Not so much an announcement as it was a rally. People were hooting and hollering and cheering, and President Trump is holding up like these poster boards with these graphs on them. And we started looking at some of, he was laying out to the American people, this is why we need tariffs, because look at the trade disparity between us. And then he had a list of dozens of countries around the globe.
Basically every country we're in a trade deficit with. I don't know that there are any countries that we're ahead of. And some of these deficits are huge. I mean, you look at the European Union, $241 billion trade imbalance. I mean, that's monstrous. China, $292 billion. Those are big numbers. He's trying to bring those numbers down, and to do so, he's using tariffs. And he's said that from the beginning, Dave. He's always said tariffs are the way to get things done. We've seen some mixed results from tariffs. Actually, we've seen pretty much poor results from tariffs so far.
Yeah.
But there must be a method to his madness, because he's not just doing this on a whim. There must be some economists that are saying, hey, this is the way to bring this down. It's something he feels strongly about. He's big on tariffs, and as I'm looking, these are some of the biggest tariffs we've had in this country in 100 years. I mean, this is going to change the whole global economy.
So as we're looking at this, I do look at trade imbalances, and if we boil it down to a very personal level, and you and I'm sure you've had little kids knocking on your doors a million times like, hey, will you buy this for this fundraiser?
Yeah.
And if I'm always buying from your kid, but you're never buying my kid's stuff.
There's a trade imbalance.
There's a trade imbalance,
right?
That. Like, SCOTUS. I'm paying your kid's way through band camp, and you can't put my kid to track camp.
You're gonna put a tariff on my kid, my grandkid.
We're gonna throw big old fat tariffs on your grandkids. But nevertheless, we have seen the markets react, obviously, poorly to this. So we thought we'd bring on a certified financial planner, Shane Stewart. Shane, thank you so much for joining us. And when you see this, I can't say I'm shocked. It's still a little bit shocking when you see those numbers dropping, like 1,500 points. At one point I thought, oh my goodness, is this going to trigger a circuit breaker? Are they going to have to shut down the entire market?
Yeah, you hope that it won't have a significant impact, but like you said, Dave, you kind of expect something to happen, right? Once it's announced, it's going to happen, and markets don't like uncertainty. And what these tariffs do is make things incredibly uncertain for businesses. Businesses have operations all over the world nowadays. Most companies, especially big companies, we may say they're an American company, but they might have a huge operation in Europe or something like that. And so, not to mention that the other countries will retaliate. We don't know how they'll retaliate. And so it's going to be a lot of uncertainty for quite a while here, because when the Trump administration says it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain, we need to put a definition on what short-term means, and that could be quite a while, actually.
So Shane, let's put a definition what long-term means. If we were interviewing the White House advisors, the financial advisors, what would they tell us is the long-term gain?
Well, I think that what they're looking at is simply, like you mentioned, that disparity or that trade imbalance. We had basically trade balance the 80s, 90s up to 2000, and then we started going into a deficit. So they're looking probably mostly at that, looking at, if you will, the control or supremacy of the U.S. economy. And most economies are just full of people. The one that's not is China. China's full of government people that control their economy. And so I wonder if they're going after, even though they're saying tariffs on everyone, I wonder if they're going after certain countries who actually control their economy, and it isn't a free market.
That's one of the tricky parts when you're looking at this globalist economy, where we are buying things from a million different countries. Like, I have absolutely no idea what I am buying and what country it is produced in. In fact, coming up in about 5 minutes, we're going to have Brian Enton from News Nation, who says that very thing. Like, you don't know where you're getting your stuff, and he's going to walk us through where some of this is happening. But does this change the way we have to look at how we make purchases? Or I guess maybe that's my question. I don't know what this means for the average buyer.
You're right, David. It'll be very difficult to really see where something's purchased from. In fact, certain components, I buy a computer, I don't know even where those components came from. So because there's uncertainty even with us, the investor and or the consumer, I think some good old basic fundamentals are appropriate here, meaning make sure that you're employable, make sure that you are not over a barrel with debt, all of those kinds of things, because there will be some rocky times here ahead. And if you do the things that you can control within your home, like controlling or eliminating debt and continuing to save, interestingly enough, today's a great day to save. It sounds weird to say, but it's all on sale today. And so it's always good to continue to keep steady on your investments and steady on your debt elimination.
So, Shane, let me ask you maybe a dumb question, because I'm not an economist. But sure. if the idea is that American consumers get good products at fair prices, don't we have to assume that there almost has to be some trade imbalance because we have more wealth than some of these nations? And isn't that, I don't know, not necessarily a bad thing?
Yeah, that's the argument with most economists, and where I studied as an economist, they said wherever there's two economists, you get at least three opinions. However, some prevailing opinions are that tariffs historically for the U.S. have never worked. They've just been difficult and hard to enforce. And you're right that maybe too much myopic focus on the trade imbalance is probably not appropriate, but that's what this administration is focused on and want to be so-called on top again when that may not be possible.
Shane Stewart, thank you so much for joining us, certified financial planner with DMBA. And I do find it, again...
It's nice to know my dumb question wasn't so dumb.
I was going to say, if that's your dumb question,
yeah.
I don't want to hear your good questions because that was an outstanding question.
Thank you, Shane.
So when we look at tariffs, and historically, you pointed, the last time we had significant tariffs like this, it's been 100 years. So we don't really have recent experience with tariffs outside of Trump 1.0. He imposed some tariffs in his first term. The Biden administration actually kept all those tariffs, expanded upon them, but we don't have history. And to compare the 1930s tariffs to what tariffs look like today, the world has completely changed. So I do accept the fact that theoretically tariffs are bad and you see the danger, but we haven't had significant tariffs for so long. I wonder if these historic factors even matter anymore.
Yeah. And again, maybe like a lot of other of Trump's ideas and his administrative actions, his executive orders, the people are going to say, let's let it ride. Let's see what he's doing. Let's give it a chance. But in the meantime, the stock market is going badly. The American dollar is looking badly, and those of us that are relying on are looking at our retirement accounts are thinking, well, I might have to work a couple more years.
Don't look at it.
Yeah,
don't look
do
at
not
it.
look at that.
You never want to look at it on down days. It is so hard. I understand theoretically, philosophically, when the market tanks, that's when you want to go all in because the market always rebounds. It is also the hardest thing in the world to do when you see and you feel the uncertainty, or even if you're in a recession, right? Or that is the time to pour your money in because historically it's always benefited. But when there's uncertainty, we feel this. We're nervous and we don't want to invest in it because there's always the what if. Well, what if this is the one time it doesn't rebound?
Yeah, seriously. So anyway, we'll keep an eye on tariffs. Right now, the stock market is rebounding a little bit, not down quite as badly as it was.
Just 1,200 points.
It's funny because it all happened since we started meeting today. The markets opened while we were planning the show. We watched them start to tank. Now a little baby rebound.
There was an interesting conversation that we had here at KSL News Radio with the Salt Lake Chamber. Derek Miller is with the Salt Lake Chamber, and he was talking about how these tariffs could directly affect housing. So I wanted to play a little bit of that.
The question specifically about housing is a good one because we're in a housing crunch. We've seen skyrocketing prices. We've seen those stabilize a little bit in the last few months, but they're still much higher than we ever thought they would be. I mean, who would have thought that in 2025 the average home would be $500,000.
And if it's $500,000 or $600,000 right now to buy a home in Utah, what is it going to look like when tariffs come into effect and we start seeing more and more expensive materials?
Yeah, we just had a segment a little while ago about how housing prices have gotten out of hand in Utah. Tariffs, according to Derek Miller, are going to make that probably worse.
Joining us right now from News Nation, Brian Enton. And Brian, I love this story that you're on today because you ask a question, which I can tell you absolutely, unequivocally, no, I do not. You ask, do you know where your stuff is from? Absolutely not. I have no idea where stuff comes from.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And, for the last couple of years, I've really been trying to buy American-made stuff and make a point of it and look at tags and stuff. But I went around my house last night and this morning just kind of surveying, and I couldn't believe how much stuff is not made in America and is now going to be impacted by these tariffs. I mean, everything from, even you look at your sneakers, almost all of them are made in Vietnam or Indonesia, especially Vietnam with Nike, which is now facing 46% tariff, which, you think about what that will do to the price of Nikes. New Balance, same thing. And then, in the kitchen, Samsung refrigerator made in South Korea, they're now facing tariffs. Coffee, Colombia, most coffee comes from Colombia, that's 10% tariff. Sponges are made in China, which is now, 34%. So it's kind of disturbing when you start walking around and looking at some of this stuff that you use every day.
But Brian, I appreciate what you said, and that is you look at the label, made in USA would be something you'd prefer. But don't you think that the average American looks at the other side of the label, which is the price tag, and that's their primary motivation? I mean, it would be nice if we all were rah, this is the USA, but right now, the way the economy is, people have every reason to also buy based on price.
Of course. And at the end of the day, I mean, you do look at the price tag. I mean, we've all got families and it's tough out there with paying the bills sometimes. But I will say, I was in my garage looking at stuff that I thought was American made, like my Milwaukee drill, I realized was made overseas. But then I found like my Maytag washer and dryer made in America, which I bought recently, which I remember was like $50 more than I think it was the Samsung, had a much better warranty through Maytag. I think it was 10 years. So, I think if you do a little bit of research, sometimes the American-made actually benefits you more, and sometimes it's not that much more expensive. This whole thing has kind of made me think about that a little more than I did before.
Brian, this was such a great story. I'm excited that you're covering it on News Nation. Do you know where your stuff is from? As soon as I saw you ask that question, I have my water jug here that carries actually Diet Coke, not water. But I've got this hydro jug, and I thought, I have no idea where this is made. So I Google it. Sure enough, made in China. So I thought, maybe I should have gone with the good old-fashioned American company, Stanley. So I look up where Stanley is manufacturing their water jugs. In China.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It can be very tricky because even like with cars, if you look at the top 10 American-made cars, a lot of them, most of them are not. I mean, Tesla's right at the top, but besides that, a lot of them are foreign brands. Like you would think it would be Ford, Chevy, but it's not. It's brands like that you don't expect, like Honda. So you do have to kind of dig in and do a little bit of research. But I was just thinking back more about the Nike shoes. You remember they were making them in China, and then the first time Trump was in, he increased the tariffs to China, so they moved a lot of their plants to Vietnam. Well, now the tariffs in Vietnam are even more than China if all this sticks. It's 46% Vietnam, 34% China. So you got to wonder what these businesses must be thinking right now.
Brian, let me ask you one other question, and that is this. The new administration is all about America first. Do you think that there will be some gain from that, and that is that more Americans will do exactly what you're describing and say, look, I think I'll buy the Ford rather than the Honda because it's more likely to be made in the United States. And maybe that's not the best example. But do you think that there will be some sort of America first with the country the way it's going right now, and maybe that what Trump's doing will make sense?
Well, they might have to, honestly. I mean, if some of these tariffs really stick and impact prices the way that some economists say they will, it may actually end up being cheaper to buy some of these American products that you just thought were like a little more expensive before. Like I mentioned, like some of the refrigerators and washers and dryers that are more than the stuff made in China. So it may force people to. That's kind of it's interesting to think about. But there are. I mean, Harley Davidson is all made. There's some great American brands that we forget about. Like Jack Daniel's whiskey is made in Tennessee. Airstream trailers have gotten really popular. They're all made in America. So there are some really incredible American companies if you kind of dig in a little bit.
I'm going to be pulling my Airstream with my big old hog.
Harley Davidson.
My Harley Davidson. Brian Anton.
Yeah.
I love it. What a great story. Thank you so much for joining us from News Nation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do you know where your stuff comes from? I absolutely. I don't look. Greg, you described the Dave Noriega experience perfect. Brian Hinton's like, yeah, I like to look. I look and see where this is, purchased. If it says buy American, all right, that's why I try to buy. You're like, yeah, but then you turn it over and then you look at the price.
Yeah.
And that is how I shop.
Sure it is. I mean, that's how you have to shop in some respects. I mean, we're all on a budget. We all don't have unlimited income. I think you mentioned earlier that if you some American shirt company to make the shirt,
yes,
they were looking at some $200
and they're selling it like seed to stitch. We're going to grow the cotton, we're going to harvest it, we're going to build it, and then the shirt was $275.
Yeah, with the global economy, you just can't do that. And so I look at these tariffs. Well, I'm not an economist. I just play one on the radio. But I think they're bad for the economy. They're bad for the global economy. But does Trump deserve a chance? Maybe so. He was voted into office to do some of this stuff.
Part of what is interesting about tariffs and what I find fascinating is when, say, you're bringing in an entire shipment and it's stopping at the port, they collect the tariff right there at the port before they release it. They're going to collect that money. And then it goes directly to the Treasury Department. It will be very interesting when it is so immediate. We should see in the next month or two, we should see what is happening. What kind of money is it generating? That's what I'm going to be looking for. What kind of money is it generating? Or are companies saying, I'm just not bringing anything in right now. These tariffs are too much, and you could see it absolutely tank the economy if companies are like, nope, I'm not buying. I'm not importing any of this stuff.
What's disturbing to me, though, is the huge jump. I mean, just to say, Canada, we're going to put 25% on. Why not put 5% and say you need to get in line? And in a couple months, we're going to have another 5%. Why not tell Vietnam, instead of adding a 46% tariff, to say you need to buy more American goods, or you need to at least send some of your manufacturing to the USA? You know what I mean? I just think this huge, exponentially large jump is not going to be good for the global economy.
When we come back, let's talk about immigration. This is something that has fallen a little bit by the wayside because of all the tariff talks and the economy. But ICE detaining immigrants on probation during court-ordered check-ins.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa this weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend, Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates this weekend only, Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission. Free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
I was in way over my head. The total amount ended up being somewhere just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me. They were going to basically hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy. Pretty much hands off, They picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?
Couldn't be happier. They definitely helped me. Optima Tax Relief. The best place to call. They're the best in the business.
Do what Patrick did and call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Hi, it's Julie from the Visitors Bureau in Logan. I'm here to make your spring break planning so easy. Here we go. Reserve your hotel room right now. Don't miss the original Baby Animal Days at the American West Heritage Center, April 2nd through the 5th and 10th through the 12th. Watch your kids and grandkids cuddle all the baby animals like lambs, goats, piglets, bunnies, and chicks. So adorable. Or forget the kids. You'll love them too. Baby bears from Yellowstone Bear World will be here April 2nd through the 5th, combined with the Cache Valley Mountain Man Rendezvous, non-stop adventure. Next, head to the Cache Valley Fun Park for laser tag, roller skating, bowling, and arcade games. Take your family to Angie's for the kitchen sink, a mountainous banana split on steroids served in an actual sink. Pick up a life supply of goldfish crackers at the Pepperidge Farm Factory or see them hand-dipping chocolates at the Bluebird Candy Company. Head to Logan for spring break or anytime you need a break. ExploreLogan.com. ExploreLogan.com.
Taxes was taxing. Now taxes is relaxing when you file for free.
I can file for free? TurboTax Free Edition. Roughly 37% of filers qualify. Simple Form 1040 returns only. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free. I can file for free.
Now this is taxes. File for free with TurboTax Free Edition and get your maximum refund. No schedules except for Earned Income Tax Credit, Child Tax Credit, and Student Loan Interest. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com and get ready for the workday.
Let me ask you a question. You have a best friend? How big would it shock you if somebody told you that your best friend just killed somebody?
911, what's your emergency? Someone on the other line said they kidnapped my son, and they're demanding $500,000.
On September 12th, 1995, 12-year-old McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas. It was a crime that shocked the community because the suspect was so unlikely, so unexpected.
Former high-ranking police official, he'd run for sheriff at one point.
Law enforcement personnel were pretty much split down the middle over whether or not he actually did this.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, still feels that justice was never truly served.
I've asked myself so many times, what in the world happened?
Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Claire Scott. KSL's top story this hour. Utah Senator John Curtis is asking for Washington's help in expanding the frontrunner ahead of the 2034 Olympics.
Senator Curtis brought up the topic to U.S. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy during a committee hearing yesterday.
We have a project we would love to show you, our frontrunner. I think you're familiar with that. We've got the Olympics coming also in Utah a few years later than California.
Curtis noted the frontrunner serves 80% of Utah's population, which will likely keep growing leading up to 2034, so they want to get this done sooner than later. Duffy expressed his interest in working on that, as well as having discussions about letting Utah take the lead on certain environmental projects. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Late Wednesday, the Senate narrowly passed a measure to cancel the tariffs Trump has imposed on Canadian imports.
This legislation was to cancel the national emergency that the president enacted to carry out those tariffs on Canada. It passed with 4 Republicans, chief among them Rand Paul, supporting the measure, but it's not likely to go anywhere in the House because Speaker Johnson has showed no interest in putting legislation like this on the floor.
ABC's Jay O'Brien reporting. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 1,348 points. The S&P is down 227. And coming up, warming temperatures. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 11:31.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the
complexities of an issue, but I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Emergency traffic and weather together brought to you by Mountain America's MyStyle checking account with built-in benefits. Here's Heather Kelly.
Well, this is for the closure on I-84. It's eastbound. All traffic is being forced to exit into Morgan City. That's State Road 66. This is due to a semi-truck that rolled further up the roadway closer to Taggart's Grill. So you are going to have to either delay your travels into Weber Canyon or just be prepared for a huge runaround to get around this closure of eastbound I-84. The rest of the drive looks good throughout Weber, Salt Lake, Davis, Utah counties. No other accidents reported right now. And if you do see something on the roads, give us a text at Mountain Home Services. It's always open at 57500. Whipple Service Champions, your cooling, heating, plumbing, drains, and electrical specialists. Whipple that away. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
A high of 50 today with cloudy skies. We'll see temperatures warm back up over the next few days with 70s forecasted at the beginning of next week. Right now it is 43 and mostly cloudy. I'm Claire Scott from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Dave and Dujanovic, your morning companions for talk, analysis, and key perspectives on Utah's biggest stories on KSL News Radio.
You know, Dave, I've practiced law for 43 years. I was a prosecutor for 8 years. I've done defense work for the balance of that time. And I had a situation come up just about a month ago. A man who was involved with a fight up in Ogden. He got in a fight. He was charged with a crime. And he'd been in the United States virtually all of his life. He wasn't born here, but he was raised here, speaks perfect English, and was educated here, works here. But he pled guilty to an assault. And he went to his probation officer after he was released. He did his time. And we never heard from him again. And I wondered what had happened to this guy. And I learned that he had been detained by his probation officer and that he was taken into custody, and he is being deported back to his country of origin, which I think is Mexico. And it occurred to me that, first of all, it's something that the people wanted. If you look at the election that we had in 2024, it's something that was big on people's mind. But it's such a seismic shift from what we've done to think. And again, I'll get tremendous pushback by saying this, but to think that this person, and he was involved in a crime, there's no excuse for it, and it was an awful crime, who I would have expected for 42 and a half years would have been on probation and been allowed to stay here and do what he needs to do. Boom, he's done, he's out of the country, and there is probably no path for him to come back in. And we're seeing that more and more and more, and it's a phenomenon that I've never seen before. I just haven't. But it's also something that I don't think that it's upsetting the American populace. I don't think it's, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where people say, well, you do the crime, you do the time, which I absolutely agree with. But boy, that's an additional punishment that you and I would never suffer.
No, that's a great point, because when you do the crime, do the time, if the judge gives you probation or you've served your sentence and then you're just doing these monthly check-ins. They're court mandated, right? So they're requiring, yes. They're saying, hey, listen, you've done your time, but we're going to need you to check back with a parole officer just to make sure everything's good. So what you're saying is when they're coming back for these court-ordered check-ins, that ICE has this list. They have people that now have committed a crime that are in the country illegally, and they are detaining them and then deporting them.
Yeah. And you know, our state agencies, in this case adult probation and parole, have never been in the business of checking people's status in our country. So it's not the state agency that's doing that. It's ICE. It's U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, who are checking these names and saying, hey, probation officer, when so-and-so comes into your office next week, give us a call. And they're showing up there and taking them into custody. It's just, I don't know why it bothers me, because it doesn't bother people. I mean, I don't think I could sell this on the street and say, hey, they're deporting criminals, because that's exactly what Trump said. We should deport criminals. And I agree with that. It's just not something we've done and that we've been used to. I mean, we've deported people for certain levels of crimes, certain serious crimes, and people who are here illegally. But now that threshold has become much less. People who have been here for a very, very long time, who maybe entered legally but are now have overextended their visa or their green card or whatever they were here for, and they commit crimes that heretofore we frown at, but, well, we're not going to take you out of the country for that. Now we are.
And I would imagine that this would have a ripple effect. Oftentimes, if there is even a not even a trend, but if there is a story that, and people start thinking, oh, wow, if I go in and show up for my court-ordered appearance that I may never come back, I'll just not show up. So right. I could see this having a ripple effect where people are like, I'm not even going to chance it. So they just kind of bury themselves deeper and deeper away from just being in the system or being involved in America.
And it's caused criminal defense lawyers like myself to become immigration lawyers, because you have to ask the question, just because a person has a certain last name, in the past, like, who cares what your last name is? Now you have to say, where are you from? What country you're from, even if they speak perfectly good English, and even if their last name is Anderson. I mean, it's a question you almost have to ask to almost all of your clients now. What is your status in the United States? And some of them will look at you like, what are you kidding?
What does that matter?
I've lived here my whole life. Yeah. Why are you asking me that question? But you have to ask that question. And judges, if you watch a colloquy with a judge, when a person pleads guilty, the judge will go through their constitutional rights. You have a right to a counsel. You have a right to a trial. But you're pleading guilty. You're waiving those rights. And the judge will say, and I take no position on your residency, but this could have an effect on your ability to stay in this country. Do you understand that? That's another thing that people are now being advised of by a court before they enter a plea to a crime, because the courts and, of course, the attorneys don't want a person coming back saying, hey, you never told me I could be deported for this. Now everybody's being told they could be deported. Even if you walked in tomorrow and pled to something more than a shoplift, the judge would tell you, Mr. Noriega, do you understand that I'm taking no position on your citizenship, but this crime could very well cause you to be deported if you're not a U.S. citizen. And you might go, what do you mean? I was born here.
This doesn't feel haphazard. This feels very much like a move on the chessboard, because the Trump administration, again, as you said, it was very clear. Immigration was probably 1B. The economy being 1A, and immigration was certainly 1B of things that people were concerned about during the election. They elected Trump, and this kind of push, I know the deportations, the crackdown at the border, much of the chess piece moving that's going on is the hope that folks will self-deport on their own without having ICE having to escort them out. Is there a benefit at all to self-deportation versus being stopped by ICE, or can you leave?
Oh, yeah, there definitely is. Okay. Because there's a thing we call aggravated reentry, which means if you've been deported and then you come back into the country, you can be charged with a crime called aggravated reentry. Whereas if the first time you're deported, it's like, get out of here. But if you come back, that's a crime now. I mean, it's a crime to enter the country illegally, but the remedy has always been just go away. We're going to ship you back. But now if a person has gone through the deportation process and they re-enter, they're committing a crime that's a serious crime. Then you'll do some prison time and then be deported.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a crime all by itself to come into the country illegally. You'd think it would be anyway.
Right.
After you've been deported. We call it aggravated reentry.
That is fascinating. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense,
right?
That people would say, hey, I'm going to actually violate my court-ordered appearance to show up before the judge. I'm just going to go back to my country, because if I get deported and then I try to come back, then the problems and the punishments are far worse.
Right. And I've even seen judges say, I'm going to put you on probation, but in a month I'm going to issue a warrant for your arrest. In other words, get out of Dodge. And if I could take you into custody now, but I'm going to give you 3 steps, and I'm going to tell you to get out of here. And judges will do that. we're going to issue a no-bail warrant for you in 30 days.
Knowing full well what they're going to do.
Right. That means get out of here. I'm giving you your bus pass.
Yeah.
You can do it the right way or you can do it the wrong way.
That's really interesting.
It's a phenomenon I've never seen before. We'll see if it works out. I mean, it's what the American public wanted, and it's what the Republicans did a very good job of causing people fear of illegal immigrants. And I painted a picture myself. Guys here illegally commits a crime. Maybe we're done sort of putting them through the normal due process that we did in the past, which was taking a long time and allowing people to remain in the country for longer than I think a lot of people felt comfortable with.
Boy, that is a story I will not forget. I mean, that is very, very well. What a great description, Greg. So thank you. Yeah, it's, again, one of those unintended consequences. Yep. You don't realize what happens. So, hey, when we come back, Utah Senator John Curtis, it always catches me for a minute. I've said Representative John Curtis about 50 billion times. Utah Senator John Curtis is asking for Washington's help in expanding Frontrunner ahead of the 2034 Olympics.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. Project Connection, a local nonprofit, was founded on the belief that connection is essential for mental health. They provide mental health services that improve well-being and foster resilience. Director of Development and Community Engagement, Jennifer Holmberg, joins us with more about their efforts.
Did you know that the number of young adults in Utah experiencing poor mental health has more than doubled in the last decade? According to the Kem C. Gardner Policy Institute, Utah ranks 11th for mental disorders, 3rd for serious mental illnesses, and 4th for adults with serious thoughts of suicide. Project Connection is addressing this critical crisis by improving access to quality mental health care and offering innovative community-based support services in Salt Lake County. We believe that connection builds resilience, and together, we can make a real lasting difference in mental health for our community and beyond. With support from donations, grants, and community partnerships, we're able to offer these essential services to everyone. To learn more about our services or how you can join our network of businesses, groups, and individuals creating points of connection in our community, visit projectconnection.co.
Project Connection is making a tangible impact on individuals' lives by fostering healing through connection. Their trauma-informed, evidence-based approach provides trusted therapy, wellness support, and social prescribing, empowering individuals to overcome challenges and thrive together. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
This Friday from 10 to 1, the movie show comes to Sound Sleep. But first, take time to learn about a better night's rest. Sound Sleep delivers oral appliance therapy that treats sleep apnea without the use of CPAP machines. They're professionally fit, warranted, and covered by most major medical insurance. End the days of a poor night's sleep. With offices from Clearfield to St. George, Sound Sleep will help. Call Sound Sleep at 801-716-8672 today.
Dave, and Dujanovic.
We got the Olympics coming up. Less than 10 years away. We want some of that government money. We want to expand Frontrunner. That's what Senator John Curtis is asking of Washington, saying, hey, we got incredible growth in Utah. We've got the Olympics coming. We need some hard rail. We've had great success with the Frontrunner system. So now let's expand it. Now's the time to do it. And Senator Curtis spoke with the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, about Utah's transportation priorities.
We have a project we would love to show you, our Frontrunner. I think you're familiar with that. We've got the Olympics coming also in Utah a few years later than California. 80% of our population is serviced by this one rail because of the geography of our state. And that 80% is expected to double in those short times. So we'd love to have your support on that project and love to personally show you that as well, given the opportunity.
You know, Dave, I think there's no secret to the fact that but for the 2002 games, we wouldn't have had tracks. We wouldn't have had it at least put in that quickly. It was something that we needed. We needed the infrastructure. And in addition to building the Kearns Oval and the Bear Hollow Park and the jumps and whatnot, they built a transit system that has now become tracks and Frontrunner. And Curtis is saying, okay, we got Olympics 2 coming in 2034. We need to expand it again because it was so popular and it was so useful and it really helped people get around from venue to venue without clogging streets and parking lots and whatnot.
And it was a game changer because we'd never had any significant transit system like this. We had the bus system, obviously, here, but we'd never had one of these big city public transit kind of situations where people would come here and they're like, well, how do I get around? Well, you can. At the time, it was like, well, you can taxi or you can rent a car because you're not going to move around in public transit.
Yeah, it's interesting. You and I spoke before the show started, and I was surprised at your response. But both of us have used Trax. Both of us have used Front Runner. And I live in Weber County. You live in Davis County, I think. And you jump on it. And even though I live a little bit east of the Trax station, it's a little bit of a schlep for me. When I get on the Front Runner, I sit down, I pull out the little tray table, and put my laptop up, and I can work for an hour. I can get work done, not worrying about traffic, not worrying about texting and driving at the same time. I got my phone, I got my laptop. I can get stuff done, jump on one of the transit stations, and then get on Trax. It takes me pretty close to work. It takes, unfortunately, because I live so far east of the line, it takes me a lot longer to get to work that way. And if I have court in some other location, it's almost impossible. Chance. Yeah, it's really hard to do. But you know, if for example, if I worked here every day, I think I would ride Front Runner all the time because it's so convenient. I mean, the Trax Front Runner station's literally walking distance, as you told me earlier. I hadn't thought about it that close.
I tell people that all the time. I'm like, I think Front Runner was probably built for me because it just seems to be such a perfect commute for me. So I can jump on the train. It drops me off a block away from the station, and it really is fantastic. And I think what the 2004 Olympics did is it gave us a taste, right? And I think we have seen this grow and expand. Now it goes out to the airport, and you can go from the airport downtown on Trax. And when you've expanded Front Runner, and it goes from Ogden down to south of Provo, you've got real connectivity. And what that does, I think, is when you're looking at, okay, well, I work downtown. Well, I can jump on and continue to work, and it does probably add 50 to 100% to your commute
time. Yeah, there is certainly a time problem with that, especially for us that live far off the line. I don't know how close your house is to the Front Runner station in Weber County, or Davis County, but I have to drive quite a ways west to get on the station there. It's the further northmost station. It's sort of Ogden Central, I guess. It's like 25th Street or something. Anyway, but I do enjoy it once I get there. And when I have car problems or my wife and I are sharing a vehicle or something like that, she can run me down to the station. You can get off, and there's a lot of restaurants and stuff close by. So it's worked out really well for me. But what always occurs to me when I get on the Front Runner is sometimes I'm the only person on some of the cars. It's just not well used yet, and I don't know why. But Utah doesn't jump on the bus.
That is such an important part of this, because what Senator Curtis is hoping for, and this has been the plan for a long time, is this discussion about double track railway to allow more trains to operate, reduces the delays, because I've experienced that. I can't tell you how many times of where a train breaks down or has an incident, and then you just have to wait for everything to clear, and there's a bus bridge, and it becomes very complicated. If you have this double track railway and you are able to operate more frequently and you don't have these delays, then that changes things. But again, it is not such an incredibly popular way to travel right now because we are so comfortable jumping in our cars. And as long as you are traveling north and south, well, what happens when we start expanding east and west? What do you do in those final 5 or 10 miles if you got to go east or west after you get dropped off?
Yeah, there's some good lines that go, for the example, University of Utah, like you mentioned, the airport. There's actually, because I do go to court in West Jordan a lot, there's a track station that goes fairly close to that, or even one out by West Valley. So I've got to learn them all, and it's once you're on it, it's so nice, it's so convenient because you can sit down and, like I say, do your work and that kind of a thing. It's just the walk you have to take to get from point A to the track station, or from track station to point B, wherever you're going. And as long as you're within walking distance of the line, it's great. If you go much further than that, it can be a little bit of a hassle.
Because when you get off, and perhaps I've done this before, where I've gone from Front Runner to Trax to like a green bike or a scooter.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
I felt like this is 12 different ways to get something done, whereas I could have just jumped in my car. And I wonder if we love the idea of public transit so much, but practically speaking, it just doesn't work here in Utah because we have so many wide open spaces. This is not New York, where you have everything so consolidated in a relatively small amount of area that you can have this subway system that reaches everything and it makes sense. Are we just too big to have any kind of comprehensive public transit system?
Well, I don't think we are, and I think John Curtis is right. He spoke with the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, about Utah's transportation priorities and said, give us some more money, give us more government funding, and we'll expand our line. The more that it's been expanded, the more people will use it, and I think people need to sort of get used to it. Older people like myself are not used to riding the train or the bus. It's just foreign to us. But young people are using it more and more, and I think they will. When you go up to, when I speak at the university and I jump on that line, it's full of kids. It's full of kids who are reading, doing their homework, that type of thing. That's a line that's really being used a lot. If you go to a jazz game or some event downtown and you want to just not have to worry about parking, not have to worry about walking to the, paying, because parking can be huge on some of these events. Just get on the train. It'll take you to where your car is 20, 30, 10 miles away, and then you can go from there. It works perfect for certain things. We just need to make it better for more things, more availability for those of us that live and work off the line more.
Such a great point, because if you're just relying on the big concerts or the big jazz games or hockey game, whatever it might be, then you are just saying, hey, you're going to use it occasionally. But for public transit to be truly effective and to be successful, it's got to be for the commuters. It's got to be for the everyday folks, because that's the only thing that is really sustainable.
Yeah, and it's got to be affordable. Right now, I think it is quite affordable, although it is a hassle every time I go on and I have to go through the kiosk and the train's waiting and I'm trying to get my credit card to work and I'm like, I can't miss this train because the next one's not going to be for 30 minutes. Help me out here.
Give me everything. I will buy it anywhere. I just got to get on there as fast as possible.
Confession. I've ridden a couple times without paying. But I haven't been busted yet. And I won't do it because it would be embarrassing as possible. Greg Scored is charged with theft of services.
Greg.
I'm not going to do it. But if the train's coming and I'm out of time, I've cheated.
That was...
This is not legal advice, listeners. Don't do
legal
this.
advice. Don't
do that.
Don't roll the dice.
No,
don't roll
it's
the
not
dice.
worth it.
All right. Coming up next with Maria Chaleos and Utah's new news. We just learned that the Saratoga mother, who was found shot in her home with her 8-year-old son, has passed away. Maria will give us more. Stay with us on KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. For years now, I've been telling you about Connecticut soft water systems that use 2/3 less salt than the others. But I've never told you exactly how they do that. Well, there are several ways, so consider this as part one in a series. Most of the softeners out there use a finicky, hard-to-adjust computer to guesstimate when to cycle, and it errs on the side of cycling too often, which means it'll burn through way too much salt way too soon. Connecticut is different. It has an all-mechanical system that measures the water precisely. No computer, no guesstimating, so it cycles only when needed. The result, Connecticut delivers perfectly soft water 24/7 using minimal salt. So why not save your lower back from carrying the 3 bags of salt when all you need is 1? Call Northern Utah's authorized Connecticut dealer, Connecticut Quality Water Systems of Salt Lake. Call them now, 801-576-8600, or log on to softwaterutah.com and tell them Doug sent you.
Hey, Green Gobbler here. So you've got a clogged drain in your bathroom.